pleasant good morning to the Honorable John Briceño, Prime Minister of Belize, his ministers, ministers of state, and members, to the Leader of the Opposition, his members, and Madam Speaker. Let us pray. Almighty and eternal God, who through Jesus Christ has revealed your glory to all nations, please protect and preserve Belize, our beloved country. God of might, wisdom and justice, please assist our Belizean government and people with your Holy Spirit of counsel and fortitude. Let the light of your divine wisdom direct their plans and endeavors, so that with your help, we may attain our just objectives. With your guidance, may all our endeavors tend to peace, social justice, liberty, national happiness, the increase of industry, sobriety, and useful knowledge. We pray, O God of mercy, for all of us, that we may be blessed in the knowledge and sanctified in the observance of your most holy law, that we may be preserved in union and in that peace which the world itself cannot give. And after enjoying the blessings of this life, please admit us, dear Lord, to that eternal reward that you have prepared for those who love you. Amen.
Announcements by the Speaker.
Good morning, members. As per Standing Order 84, notices of absence were received by the member for Freetown and the member for Queen Square. Acting Clerk.
Bill brought from the Senate.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Speaker. Good morning to our colleagues. Madam Speaker, I rise to move that the House do now consider the Senate amendments. Madam Speaker, what has happened is that when it was in the Senate, this bill was being debated. It was found that there was inconsistency between the tax exemptions in the DPM, the DPAs, and the income tax amendment bill. The Senate had already passed the income tax amendment bill, so they picked it up, and that is why it is brought back to make that correction. It's a simple correction and oversight, and so I ask for the support of members of the House. Thank you.
Honorable members, the question is that the House do now consider the Senate amendments. All those in favor, kindly say aye. Aye. Those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Senate amendments is on Class 17. Amend Class 17 at proposed Section 19A as follows. 1, by deleting proposed subsection 1 in its entirety. 2, by renumbering proposed subsection 3 as subsection 1. And 3, by renumbering proposed subsection 3 as subsection 2.
Honorable members, the question is that the amendments as proposed by the Senate to the Designated Processing Areas Amendment Bill 2024 on 21st November 2024 be accepted. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Papers.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, I ask for your indulgence. I want to present these three papers, and then if you could allow me to say a few words on each one of them. So I'll present them together, and then as opposed to up and down. Madam Speaker, I rise to, to present and lay on the table sessional papers, HR 294 or 113, the annual report from the Development Finance Corporation for the year ended December 31st, 2023. HR 29A 113, the Belize Government Lotteries Limited financial statements for the period from inception, from its inception to the 31st March of 2024, and the sessional paper 294B 113, the General Sales Tax Amendment, amendment of Schedule October 2024. As I said, Madam Speaker, I would wish to speak a bit on each one of them. I think it's important when it comes to the issue of DFC's annual report that I make some remarks on the incredible accomplishments and turnaround that the DFC has done since this new government, since our government took over in November 2020. In October, when we approved the loan motion for the DFC to access the Caribbean Development Bank's non-consolidated line of credit, I shared a few words on how the DFC was performing. So allow me to remind this honorable House and all Belizeans who have tuned in this morning to talk about the transformation that is taking place at the DFC. This 2023 annual report, which is available on DFC's website, includes a detailed discussion of the operations of the DFC with accompanying audited financial statement for 2023. DFC was audited by the accounting firm Moore Stevens LLP. Moore Stevens LLP gave DFC an unqualified opinion, which in layman's terms means the consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material aspects the consolidated financial position of the corporation at the end of December 31st, 2023, and of its consolidated financial performance and consolidated cash flows for the year in accordance with International Financial Reporting Standards, or the IFRS. Madam Speaker, every time we discuss the DFC, certainly the leader of the opposition and other members from the other side would get up and talk about the DFC of old, what happened a long time ago. Well, I want to assure you, Madam Speaker, my colleagues in this House, and everybody that as Prime Minister and Minister of Finance and our government on this side, this DFC is a new DFC and it is performing. Allow me to share a few highlights. The DFC recorded its second consecutive profit in 2023, a profit of $664,000. What is remarkable, Madam Speaker, is that the DFC was able to create value despite reducing its lending average rate to Belizeans while incurring a $1.6 million or a 47% increase in the cost of funds due to the inflationary pressures in the global financial markets. So whilst before the UDP was losing money under the UDP, under our stewardship, interest rates internationally going up, but despite all of that, we managed to have a small profit. So I can tell you that when we present or when we lay on the table DFC's 2024 annual report, it will show that for the third time in a row, that DFC will be turning a profit. Now, Madam Speaker, I speak of profits not only as a measure of performance. DFC is Belize's public development bank. And as a bank or financial institution, it must perform. However, DFC's focus continues to be on its development input. What is the role the DFC can play in the development in this country, and that it must be aligned with the plans that we have in Plan Belize. When you look at a summary of the key financial ratios of 2023, shows that DFC principal arrears ratio has decreased from 15.5% in 2019 to 10.3% in 2023, while the above benchmark of 5% It shows a continued downward trend, which is good. In terms of its non-performing loans ratio, the ratio of bad loans as a percentage of the total loan portfolio, this shows also a decrease from 19.99%, basically we say 20% in 2019, to 14.94% in 2023. This ratio actually peaked during COVID at 26.79% by the end of 2020. For the first time since post-2008, the DFC's portfolio quality is such that this ratio is below the benchmark of 15%. This shows that while the DFC is growing, it's doing so prudently and responsibly. Considering this ratio that is below 10%, we are seeing a reduction in value of non-performing loans in absolute terms, which is very good. In terms of loan activity, Madam Speaker, 2023 was another solid year for the DFC, marking the best year-over-year performance for the past 5 years. Loan approvals in 2023 were at 46.34 million, the highest since 2009, and a doubling of approval levels over the past 5 years, compared to approvals of 16.03 million in 2019. This is a 289% increase. And for coming attractions or previews for 2024, DFC has already surpassed the $50 million benchmark. The DFC is performing. Loan disbursements in 2023 were at 36.55 million, the highest level achieved in the past 5 years. Again, compared to 2019, when disbursements were at 17.02 million, DFC's 2023 performance shows a 215% improvement. The DFC that we inherited took too long to disburse its loans. This DFC is changing and providing a better service. As to the growth, the portfolio growth, like in 2023, its portfolio growth grew some $14 million, and this was achieved with a portfolio value of $152.33 million at the end of 2023. Let's compare this to 2019. The portfolio value at the end of 2019 stood at $114.33 million, which represented a contraction of $3.05 million from 2018. The DFC was going in the wrong direction. And today, the DFC portfolio at the end of 2023 is 133% larger than 2019. As I mentioned earlier, at the end of this all, the DFC is about impact. The impact it's having in the economy, in the development of the country, in the development sector, agriculture, tourism, services, and even young people and women. The SIB, the Statistical Institute of Belize, release that came out earlier this week shows that banana export grew at 71.3% for the first 10 years in 2024. This is a 40% increase compared to the same period last year, and was possible because of the support provided by the DFC. Fertilizer. In cattle, the DFC has invested in the infrastructure that made the exporting of cattle to Mexico possible, and with the livestock producers across the length and breadth of this country to improve their herds. Over the past 2 years, farmers have seen the price paid for export cattle double. I remember we also have a cattle farm, also, Madam Speaker. When we started out way back then, it was at 60 cents. And today it's anywhere as much as $2.25 per pound. It's at $3 now? $3.10. I I have to talk to Jaime, the last sentence at 225. Yeah, so at $3, Madam Speaker, from 60 cents. But that happened because this government managed to open the Mexico market. And we need to thank former President Andres Lopez Obrador and also President Sheinbaum, who, despite the fact that we have this existential threat to the region over a screwworm, her message to the minister or to the secretary of Agriculture was, we need to do everything possible to keep the Belize market open to Mexico. And to this day, and please everybody knock on wood, we have not found, we are the only country in Central America that does not have the screwworm. And we're preparing for it. And I know the minister would have said a few words. Will you still speak on it? Not anymore. Okay. But just to quickly point out, in his recent meeting in Chiapas, the minister, I'm sorry I'm digressing a little bit, but this is important, Madam Speaker, because it goes to the work with the DFC. He met with the Secretary of Agriculture, and they're already putting protocols, just the same protocols that they're putting with the United States, at the United States border. They're doing the very same thing here. There's a pre-check here in Belize, through Baja, and then it goes into another corral on the Mexican side by Sinasica, who is the Baja's counterpart. And if they find any animal that's infected, they will send it back to Belize, and then all we need to do is to hold that animal for about 5 days, because by then the screwworm is going to be dead once you cure it, and you could send it back and export it back to Mexico. We are grateful that our good friend and brother from the north, Mexico, is prepared to continue to work with us. Presently, we are producing how many times more than what you call it? The last time was what, 30 times? 40,000. Yeah, but how many more than what we can consume? It's about, the last time was over 30 times, we're producing more than 30 times what we can consume in Belize. So you could imagine what would happen, God forbid, if we cannot export this cattle. And the DFC, Madam Speaker, continues to support our Belizean entrepreneurs with a special focus on women. Loans to female entrepreneurs doubled in 2023 for its award-winning Empowered Business Loan product. And the ratio of male to female loans moved from 29 males to 71 females. And then in 2023, from 21 males to 78 females in 2023. The DFC is empowering women. So, Madam Speaker, let me remind this honorable House that the stellar performance of the DFC in 2023 was possible because the government has been stellar in its management of the Belize's finances and has stimulated economic growth, which created a business climate for growth. This government has rescued Belize, remember, from its lethal 133% debt to GDP, which was to historically high unemployment and high crime rates, to where we are now. Belize is a model of fiscal prudence, a leader in GDP growth, historically low unemployment rate at 2.1%. With major crimes down, and poverty is on the decline. We have much more to do, of course. We understand that. We're not out of the woods. We have a lot more work, so we appeal to everyone that we need to be able to work together. But we need to continue to uplift the lives of the Belizean people, and but we have come a long way from November of 2020. So, Madam Speaker, I take the opportunity on behalf of all of us on both sides of the House to congratulate the team of the DFC for the stellar work that they have done in 2023. Now, Madam Speaker, there has been a lot of talk about the Fui lottery, and some skepticism in the minds of some Fui Bolido, thinking that this government may do something similar to what the borough administration did. And so today it gives me great pleasure, in effect, and certainly an honor to be able to present the financials of We Bolido, to show to all Belizeans, to all the skeptics, that we have been open about Bolido, and that when we say Fui Bolido, we mean that this the Fui Bolido. So today we are presenting our first annual financial report of the Belize Government Lotteries Limited, the BGLL, for the year 2023 to 2024. This audit again was done by the firm Moore Belize LLP. Please note that BGLL's financial year runs parallel with government from from one year to the following year, April of this year to the following year of March, 12 months. So the Belize Government Lotteries started its operations in August of 2023, but its first recorded sale was in November 21st of 2023. Therefore, the financial audit is a reflection of an 8-month period between August 1st, 2023 to March 31st, 2024. The balance sheet, and we are presenting this, and we're going to be making it public to everybody. The balance sheets is very strong, with total assets of $6.7 million, made up of several assets, including equipment and software development. Please note that BGL was funded through the Ministry of Investment with monies provided by the government of Belize. So all of us, all taxpayers, we made an investment in this company. The profit and loss statement reveals a total net income of $5.8 million, which is as follows. The revenues between November and March 23-24 was $36.9 million. The cost of sales, the winnings, was 30.6%. These are the winnings and commissions. Administrative expenses was $500,000, which generated a net profit of 5.8%. The financial audited statements, or the financial audit, reveals a very healthy cash flow position at the end of March of 2024, with cash and cash equivalents balance of $5,589,115. The first audited financials of BGL represents a healthy statement of accounts of the government's institution that now manages the government lotteries for and on behalf of all Belizeans. For the first time in history, we can report that for the first 4 months of sales, Fui Belize Bolido is already benefiting the Belizean people with $5.8 million. However, Madam Speaker, the board or the management of BGL decided to do an unaudited financial report for 12 months, so we could see how much we can make in a full year of operations. From December the 1st of 2023 through November 30th of 2024. And this report was presented to the management, to the board of the Government Lotteries Limited, BGL. For the period of November, well, when the first sale was in November 21st of 2023, right up to November 30th of 2024, BGL recorded sales of $111,164,580 plus 18 cents, which was for Bolido and sales and lottery sales only. If you can recall earlier, under the Borough Bolido, and pun intended, their sales, they were recording like 15 million and 16 million, getting on to 19 million. When they heard that the government was considering in taking back, all of a sudden it started to don't jump $20+ million that they sell and they are projecting in the future 50 million. All kind of numbers, you know. But here we are in the first 12 months of full operations of selling Bolido. We have already surpassed $111 million. And change, cannot change. They were a fortune. They were underreporting, and we have a thing called business tax, you know. And business tax, the large change, you could go back 12 years. If you get a name, I whistle. Yes, that's the documentary we need to do that. Good point, Chairman. And we were not trying to cheat the Belizean people with their winnings, because the other crowd, they made a report under 70% in winnings, and it was 64%. Well, the prize winnings paid out during that period, Madam Speaker, we paid out $77,563,364.50. It reflects a payout percentage of 70% of sales we give back to the Belizean people. The general, administrative, and operational expenses were $16,614,189.66, which the gross profit after all costs of all sales, including prize winnings and commissions, was $17,596,497.12. Profit. Yes, that's the profit. The statement of cash flows as of November again showed very healthy cash flow. As you can have 19.9 million, you could pretty much say $20 million that they had. So after 12 months of sales, Madam Speaker, the government lottery under the management of the Belize Government's Lottery Limited, we have earned a total profit of $16.6 million. This is a 564% or a $14.1 million increase in revenues collected by government compared to what they were collecting under the Barrow administration. You have an idea how much the UDP government will get from the Bolido lottery, the Barrow lottery? Well, we got by the Barrow government give it out. Now the Barrow lottery back then. In 2022, they collect $2.5 million. 2.5 million. That after 10 years, you know. Remember, they get this stuff in 2010. 10 years, well. And so, $2.5 million. Now people have no shame, Madam Speaker, just rip way off. As we agreed in Cabinet, Fui Bolido will be used to help to fund the national health insurance and to assist with sports for our young people. There's none of us, there's no families, that's for the people of this country. Madam Speaker, Fui Bolido is now working for the benefit of all Belizeans. Now, Madam Speaker, I just want to quickly comment just a little bit on the GST holiday that we're providing this coming weekend and next weekend. I know that the leader of the opposition likes to talk about the inflation, the high cost of living, which is something that we have never shied away from. But he acts as if we are the ones that created the cost of living and inflation. As I pointed out over and over and over to everyone, the goods that come in, especially food items, most of them do not pay any tax. So it's not like we raise the taxes on these things. We import inflation. And if the leader of the opposition, well, Not you, Madam Albert. You know, you're not a real leader of the UDP, but the one in front of me. If he could be honest for a moment, he would fully recognize and understand that is something that is a worldwide phenomenon. The United States election right now, a major part of why President-elect Donald Trump won was because he was saying, oh, he's going to bring down the cost of living. And it seems that the Biden presidency was not able to properly explain or to properly understand what people are feeling, Madam Speaker. We have made it abundantly clear from day one that we understand what people are going through, and we know that our options are limited. So we have to be creative. We have to be creative, and I will talk to it when I answer the question for the member for myself on the many things that we have been doing. But this is just one idea, an idea that they would have never been able to think about. In busy the fact, we decided that now during Christmas time, like DPM always tell me, Christmas find their own money, but then in January, people have pain. So we said, how can we find a way to help during this time? A time when everybody's supposed to be happy, we're supposed to be merry, we're supposed to be enjoying. And our children can't understand whether you have money or not. They know that they want a little toy, Christmas there, they want a little apple, and so forth. So we decided that, and then also we know we have Chetamal, that then people will be probably trying to flock over to Chetamal, hopefully to see if they can find something cheaper, which is not necessarily cheaper. So we decided to find a way, an innovative way, how we can keep our people, give them a chance, give them an ease, and at the same time to be able to help them to stay and spend their monies in Belize. And this is how we came up with that idea, that we are giving a tax, a GST holiday for Saturday and Sunday of this week, and next weekend, Saturday and Sunday again, so that people can save at least 12.5% on their purchases. And whilst we are loose on the revenues, to us it's not only about the money. It's important, we need the money as a government, we need the money, but we make people happy, and we make people spend the money here. And when they spend money here, they spend it in a Belizean-owned businesses, and they hire people, and then eventually we'll be able to collect the taxes back. We'll still make it up at the end of the day. But they don't understand this concept, you see. And whenever I stop only with that, Madam Speaker, we decided for this month, we will not collect GST on hams and turkey. This, you can buy your cereal in a shop. This is what I'm talking, Madam Speaker, how we are addressing the issue of the high cost of living. Find different ways. We raise the minimum wage, everybody's salary has gone up. We raise the threshold for income tax, which can start next month. You know, mortgages for 100,000 or less now have to pay the tax. Lots of properties over under 30,000, land now have to pay no. These are different ways. Free education that we've been expanding, and real free education, where we pay everything, including your uniforms, and if they can't have a meal, we help them with a meal. All of these things end up putting more money in the pockets of the most deserving Belizeans in this country, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to thank my colleagues who have quickly agreed on this, and also to Mrs. Langsworth and the people at BTS, the Belize Tax Service, who are quickly started to work on this idea. We just came up with an idea about 2 weeks ago to make the necessary adjustments and changes so that this could happen for the Belizeans to be able to have a happy Christmas. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, those papers are ordered to lie on the table. I recognize the Honorable Minister of Public Utilities, Logistics, and E-Governance.
Madam Speaker, I rise to present and lay on the table sessional papers number HR 294C/1/13, which is the Electricity Licensing and Consent Amendment Regulation 2024. And Madam Speaker, if you allow me just very briefly, this regulation addresses current licensees and exempt them from having to apply for a new license under this regulation, except if they modify or expand their current operations, then they would be required to apply for a new license under this regulation. And then there is sessional paper number HR 294D/1/13, which is the Public Utilities Commission Request for Proposal Amendments Regulation 2024. This regulation, Madam Speaker, makes provisions for declarations of emergency in the energy sector, and it creates two pathways. The first is where the declaration is made by the PUC, and then it sets out what happens in that instance. And the second is where the declaration is made by the single buyer, BL. Where the single buyer makes that declaration, Madam Speaker, they are required to send that declaration to the minister, who then takes that to cabinet. Cabinet makes a determination if in fact there is an emergency, and then sets out what is to be followed if that determination is made. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, those papers are ordered to lie on the table.
Presentation of reports from Select Committee.
I recognize the Honorable Chairperson of the Constitution and Foreign Affairs Committee.
Morning, Madam Speaker. I rise to lay on the table report number HR 295/1/13, report from the Constitution and Foreign Affairs Committee on the Senior Courts Amendment Bill 2024. Also, Madam Speaker, I rise to lay on the table report number HR 296/1/13, report from the Constitution and Foreign Affairs Committee on the resolution authorizing requests for affiliation to the Inter-Parliamentary Union Motion 2024. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, those reports are ordered to lie on the table. Acting Clerk, before we move to questions to ministers, can we dispense with Standing Order 12-8, please?
Madam Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order 12-8, I move that the proceedings on the order paper may be entered upon and proceeded with at this day's sitting at any hour do opposed.
Honorable members, the question is that the proceedings on the order paper may be entered upon and proceeded with at this day's sitting at any hour do opposed. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Questions to ministers.
Honorable members, allow me just to explain. We are past the 11 o'clock hour. However, we started late. Therefore, I have dispensed with Standing Order 21-7, which does say, if you recall, that if questions that require an oral answer are not addressed by the 11 o'clock hour, then the ministers would then respond in writing. I have dispensed with that SO since we started about 30 minutes late, and will allow the 3 questions. I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition and Member for Mesopotamia.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Pleasant good morning. Pleasant good morning to all of my colleagues on both sides and the Belizean people. Madam Speaker, if you just oblige me, I would like to offer deepest sympathies on behalf of the entire House to those 10 people that lost their lives and their family. I extend my condolences to the members from Cayo North East, Cayo North, Cayo West, as well as the opposition standard bearers, Madam Speaker. And finally, former Minister and Member of Parliament Beverly Williams lost her daughter yesterday as well. So offer deepest sympathies to all of those people. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the Honourable Minister of Rural Development tell this Honourable House What was the procurement process for a recently purchased 3.1 million well rig, including who were the suppliers that bid and who had the lowest bid?
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Rural Transformation.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when we received this question, I had to chuckle and really think whether, the leader of the opposition is serious, because of the kind of insinuation and aspersions that he attempts to make, knowing fully well what their record was for the last 13 years. But, Madam Speaker, let me go to the response. The Ministry of Rural Transformation, Community Development, Labor and Local Government has a mandate to provide rural communities with potable water. The MRT is responsible for the maintenance of 109 water systems across this country, ensuring that all residents in rural communities have access to clean and safe water. MRT also provides assistance through drilling of wells to farmers, schools, and other institutions. In presenting the question of how our upgrade to our rig equipment was procured, the UDP and the leader of the opposition is trying to cast a shadow on the good work of the ministry. They think we engage in the type of corruption they were engaged in for 13 years. They had 13 years to buy a new well rig. Do you know how many rigs they bought? None. No. Not even a piece of iron for those trucks. They had Petrocarib money to spend wildly on Pibil and Tacos Fests, but they had no money to equip the Ministry of Rural Transformation. They did not have the common sense to use those monies to buy equipment that would benefit the Belizean people. The rigs we have are over 24 years old, and for the record, these rigs were purchased when the Right Honorable Said Musa was Prime Minister under the last PUP administration. That is our record, Mr. Leader of the Opposition. These rigs have deteriorated over the years, making it difficult and costly to fulfill our mandate efficiently. The procurement of a new well rig was necessary in improving the quality of life for residents in rural communities by affording them access to potable water, resulting in increased social and economic development. This is our mandate under Plan Belize. Unlike what the former Prime Minister of this country said, that he was sorry and that he wept for his country, the hypocrisy. He said he was sorry for those who would take over the mandate. We never sit on the side and cried. We rolled our sleeves, we work hard, we found the money, we have delivered, we are working to develop this nation. The Ministry of Rural Transformation went through an open and transparent procurement process, following established procedures to obtain the new well rig it now has. Open tender. The Ministry first went through an open tender process that started on February 5th, 2023. This means that the ministry openly advertised a request for bids in local newspapers and its official website. 3 bids were received through the exercise, and an evaluation committee consisting of the Ministry of Finance, Assets and Utilities Management, BWSL, and the Ministry of Rural Transformation evaluated those bids and concluded that the specifications were not met. The committee thereafter recommended a selective tendering process, and we received 3 bids. All right? We received, and we actually have them here, the bids that we had received. I can share them. Excel Oil Field Equipment had bid for $4 million. MW Motor Imports had $4.8 million. And then Belize Diesel and Equipment had $4.1 million. An approval from Ministry was sought and obtained to use the selective tender process thereafter. On August 25, 2023, after MRT received approval from the Ministry of Finance to use the selective tender process, official bid invitations were sent to 3 businesses to submit bids for the procurement of a new well rig, based on the response from the open tender process. And I had already shared those. The evaluation committee again met and reviewed the bids received through the selective tender process. None of the bids were complete, and some did not meet the required technical specifications requested by MRT, among other requirements. Given the status of the tendering process, the bid evaluation committee then recommended that the sole single source tendering process be used. Again, MRT sought approval from the Ministry of Finance to use the sole source tendering process. After receiving the approval to use the sole single source tendering process from the Ministry of Finance, MRT decided to send the coordinator of the Rural Water Supply and Sanitation Unit to visit manufacturers in the United States. In June of 2023, the coordinator visited 3 rig manufacturers: Versa Drill in Indianapolis, Simple Drilling Equipment in Iowa, and Jeffco Bauer Equipment America in Conroe, Texas, to view the available options of rigs. Thereafter, the MRT sought the Ministry of Finance and the Contractor General's approval to enter into contract with Jeffco Bauer America Equipment Limited for the supply of a Jeffco 30K 2025 Kenworth T800 truck drilling rig, and approval was granted. MRT signed a contract with Jeffco Bauer Equipment America Limited and deposited 50% of the total cost of the rig on February 2nd, 2024. The total cost was $2,923,166.87. Belize, sir. The rig was completed and handed over to the satisfaction of MRT on October 16th, 2024 in Conroe, Texas. The new rig was received by MRT in Belize City on November 26, 2024. The open tender and selective tendering procedures were used before in the procurement of the new well rig, but both failed due to incomplete submissions. Additionally, the prices the bids submitted were too high and above MRT's available budget. Please also note that both processes were successfully closed and suppliers who submitted bids were formally notified. MRT then proceeded to the single sourcing option with the approval of the Ministry of Finance, thereafter the Contractor General. The MRT conducted a transparent tendering process for its new well rig and in accordance with all financial regulations, and obtained all necessary approvals as required from the Ministry of Finance and the Contractor General. Procuring the well directly from the manufacturer not only ensured we got value for money, thereby saving the government a lot of money that can be used to continue to provide potable water to Belizeans across this country. Madam Speaker, let me end on this note. We went through a very transparent process. So I don't want the leader of the opposition and those members on that side to ever think that we will or are engaged in any shenanigans. We are here to serve the Belizean people, unlike the UDP during their term, who have a proven track record of incompetence and corruption. We are here to work and serve all the Belizean people in a transparent manner. I thank you.
I recognize the Honorable Leader of Opposition, member from Mesopotamia.
Madam Speaker, I'd just like to clarify. When I write questions to ministers, I am not permitted to make all these types of aspersions and give all this commentary and all
no,
this
1
criticism.
second. No.
So when the
Are you going
members
to ask your
respond,
question?
when they respond,
Are you
they should
going to
respond.
ask your
They should not be
question?
allowed
He
to
responded.
go off into these dissertations.
Member, are you going to ask the second question or withdraw
I
it?
will ask the second
Please
question.
ask the second
But I was
question.
just putting that on record, Madam Speaker, for your guidance.
There is no, and you should know this because you're supposed to be acquainted with your standing orders, right? There is no time limit on the response, nor is there any guidance, if you will, or criteria on the specifications of the response. It is for the minister to respond, to consider the question, and to provide a response in accordance to that.
Thank you,
All
Madam.
that is
Sorry.
necessary is for them to stay within the confines of SOs regarding comments. Please, for your second question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance please tell this Honorable House why the price of gas continues to be so high in Belize, despite the fact that gas prices have been falling for more than 2 years globally?
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, but I think I must add that the leader of the opposition is trying to create aspersions. Because whenever he wants something from one of us,
Madam
pick
Speaker,
up the phone and
aspersion,
call
a
us.
point of order. You just said that the responses should stick to the content. My content had no aspersions because you would not allow that, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Prime Minister, can we just answer the question?
Okay,
We've
Madam
already
Speaker.
dealt with the first.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just the point I'm making that if he wanted information, he could have gone and speak to the Honorable Minister and he'd have been given all the information. But he thinks he will embarrass the Minister to come and ask that question here. Likewise, Madam Speaker, the same thing comes along with the issue of fuel. The member from Mesopotamia to know how, or at least how to frame his question in such a way that he does not expose himself. Because they had Petro-Caribbean money. Remember when they were getting 40%, they only used to pay 60%? And 40% they used to keep as a supposedly loan. They could have used that and use it to help reduce the fuel, the cost of fuel. They didn't bother. They still may keep the fuel high. But it just shows you that when they come here, or when he comes here, he just try kind of crazy, say, oh, I got you. My brother, you have a long way to go. That much I can tell you. But let me be nice to the leader of the opposition, a member from Mesopotamia, and let me explain to you the big picture. And I hope you'll be able to see the big picture that what with the people. Because you can't take things in isolation. You could take things in isolation and try to build a case. But when they show the big picture, then it exposes you for what you are. There is a reason why Belize is one of the fastest growing economies, not only in the Caribbean or Central America, but in the entire Western Hemisphere, with the exception of Guyana. Well, we know Guyana is being fueled solely by petroleum, by oil. But Belize is the fastest growing economy in this entire region. There is a reason, member from Mesopotamia, why poverty has plummeted since we took over in November of 2020. There's a reason why the average income of the minimum wage has increased by more than 50%, which is far beyond and above the cumulative inflation rate. And when we raised the minimum wage, everybody else's salaries went up the scale. Everybody right now. You know, I met with one of the biggest employers earlier this week, Madam Speaker, the persons, different companies. I think he has about 2,000 people that he's hiring in agriculture, services, and so forth. and he was pointing out, he says, Prime Minister, you should consider raising up the minimum wage at least to $6. Because everybody's salary above $5. Nobody get $5 anymore because people need more workers. And so people go from job to job where they could get the best rate. So there's a reason why that is happening. There's also a reason why people have more work. There's more jobs than ever before.
Madam Speaker,
And
on a
today
point of
we
order,
have-
my question is about fuel prices, not minimum wage or employment.
I hear the point of order, Prime Minister. We're waiting to get to
Madam
the
Speaker, the point is I'm making that the taxes that we collect from fuel is being invested in the people to make people life better. That is why I was hoping that he could see the big picture. But he can't grasp the big picture. This is my explanation. You ask your question the way you want, I answer the way I see fit to answer your question, member from Mesopotamia. So today, in Belize, we have the lowest unemployment rate in history at 2.1%. And the lowest underemployment at 2.2%. We've never seen these numbers. There's a reason why our debt to GDP has been cut in half since we get in our government. There's a reason why we continue to turn primary surpluses every year since we got into government. There's a reason, something also, that what we call prudent fiscal and economic management. I'm not sure if you understand that, but in fact, all of you, you, member from Mesopotamia, would not understand that. Because when your party was in government, I never did bother to learn anything. To this day, you still seem unable to understand. That is why when they want me to say, what with Petroda, roll it, whatever. Instead they roll it, instead they invest it in the economy.
Madam Speaker,
There
the
you go
member
again.
from
There
Orange
you
Walk
go again.
Central is being repetitive and not answering the question, Madam Speaker. The answer could be
Member.
that the retail benefits are not coming to Belize for whatever
Leader of the
reason. Answer
opposition,
the
you
question.
don't get to ask
he's not
and
answering
answer
the
your
question, Madam
question. Please
Speaker.
sit. You don't get
On
to
a point
ask
of
and
order, He's
answer.
not answering the question. You said that he had to stick to the content of the question, Madam Speaker.
And he linked to your question. Prime Minister, may you conclude.
Maybe you need ABC. The point I try and make that the taxes that we collect for diesel and fuel and so, we're investing it in the economy. That is the result of what we're doing. So now can you listen?
So you keep them high.
Can you listen?
Deliberately.
Listen.
Thank you for the answer.
Mesopotamia, I think I shouldn't even call you leader of the opposition, because the leader of opposition of two. Or one. One. So, Madam Speaker, as I said, he asked his question and I answer the question I see fit. I never tell him how to write the question. Maybe somebody write the question for him.
To the content of the question.
And that's the content. That's why I said from the beginning, I hope you could grasp.
Allow me to stand. I'm going to say this once, and I won't repeat myself again. Leader of opposition, member from Mesopotamia, you don't get to ask and answer. You may want it to be answered in a certain manner. That is not your purview. The speaker is the one who determines if something is repetitive or if the link is not being made. There is some, if you will, a little bit of leeway on both sides that is allowed so that people can get to their point. This back and forth will not do. It never does. I ask you to respect this chair. You are the leader of the opposition in the House and the member for Mesopotamia. What you are not is the Speaker of the House. Prime Minister, can you please finish with the
Thank you,
answer?
Madam Speaker. As I said earlier, I hope that he can grasp the big picture. I'm so busy.
That's a miracle.
Maybe I'm asking too much. Because the point is that all the taxes that we collect collectively allow us to do what we're having today in this country. And that's the point I'm trying to make. You see, what the point we're making, Madam Speaker, is that we manage our house and this economy because of the way we understand how we have to manage both sides of the budget, the revenues and the expenditures. And we've been able to do, despite all of that, Madam Speaker, to do so much with what the revenues that we have been collecting. I mean, look at the rollout of free education, Madam Speaker, across this country. We are almost completing the full rollout of the universal primary healthcare services, what we call as NHI, throughout this country, and we're going into Ohio in January. And I will talk about that later. Because it is because of the way we manage government assets and liabilities we have been successful in distributing tens of thousands of lots of first-time landowners, Madam Speaker. We have been able to engender confidence in the present and hope in the future. We've been able to double the minimum wage and still achieve historically low unemployment, and we continue to attract the highest level of investment, domestic and foreign, in Belize's history. And because of the prudent fiscal management, we are now phasing in meaningful tax reform that benefits all of our people. More than 5,000 hardworking Belizeans will now be able to take home an average of $1,000 more.
Madam Speaker, on a
because
point
of
of
the
order,
increase.
my question was not about prudent fiscal management. If the answer is keep the taxes
please
high,
take
keep
your
the prices
seat.
high on
Member,
fuel because
please
it
take
pays for
your
all of
seat.
these, then say that. I don't see the linkage.
It's okay for you not to see a linkage. Continue, Prime Minister. Member, Leader of Opposition, it's not difficult to appreciate what I'm trying to say. Keep quiet while the other member is talking. It was done for you.
It's a question, Madam Speaker, not debate.
I think now who we talk about some silly pills one time? More than 5,000 Belizeans, hardworking Belizeans, will be able to take $1,000 more starting next year because we have been reducing the income tax to hardworking Belizeans. I'll give you a big picture. Big picture. The total exemptions for mortgages of less than $100,000 that you have to pay on stamp duty for new homeowners will save another $1,500 on such purchases. Almendares it was. A buyer of a residential house lot will no longer have to pay a 12.5% GST on such savings, once again yielding potential thousands of dollars in savings for Belizeans. Now we announced this week, we just announced that here we're bringing we spoke about it, Madam Speaker, that this weekend and next weekend, our local businesses and our consumers during this Christmas season all across this country will get no less than 12.5% discount, courtesy of your People's United Party government. And just to make it clear to you, make you understand, it's going to be December the 14th, December the 15th, December 21st, and December 22nd.
He don't shop there, he shop in New York.
Oh, he shop there, New York City, okay, the Big Apple. It is estimated that upwards of $5 million are going to be saved by shoppers all across this country with this GST exemption. But yet, he said, "I do nothing," right?
Madam Speaker,
And that increase,
Madam Speaker,
and that includes,
how does
Dios
GST
mío.
and all of
Dios
the
mío.
benefits of the so-called benefits of high cost of fuel, how does that answer the question, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, I
The
believe
Prime
that you're
Minister
allowing the
has
Prime
already
Minister to
stated.
abuse
No,
his privileges in this.
No, if you look at previous House meetings, I think you'd appreciate the question and answer period, how it has been done. I would welcome your recommendations as a member of the House Standing Committee on time limits when you attend those meetings for the amendments to the SOs.
Well, only two are in how many committees? 12, 13 committees? How many committees do they attend? No, and again, we talk about big picture, my brother. And maybe you can understand the big picture. it's important to point out that we can do all of this that we're doing when you embark on a firm policy and national priority of prudent fiscal and economic management. When they were in government, they kept it high. And now he have the face of brass to come and tell you that we keep it high. Look at what we are doing. Madam Speaker, the leader of the opposition has come here with this question where he feels he could score some political points. Because, again, he's a leader without a party. He never knew he was overthrown. and every week you hear another one de left out, another leader de left out. We were put in a jail, he won. So if he want to put his own in a jail, what he here to do with we? God is great. You will never be prime minister. That's so much. Yes. Fonseca never did say that. Fonseca never did say that. But also, Madam Speaker, if he were to do some check in the internet before he comes here and speaks, one simple Google search would have shown that in Europe, gas prices very high, and it has been increased in 2024. You know, Austria, Bulgaria, Croatia, the Czech Republic, Finland, the UK, Ireland, Norway, and I could go on with a number of the other countries. In the Caribbean, in Antigua and Barbuda, the diesel is at $14.25 a gallon. In Grenada, $14.40 per gallon. St. Lucia, $16.50. All of these countries in the Caribbean, their diesel is higher than what we have in Belize, and we are performing way better than all of them. So, the member from Mesop, the leader without a party, he could hate as much as he wants, but it cannot take, in the least, cannot take away from what this government and as a country we have achieved, and I'm most proud to say that what we have done with such achievements because Plan Belize is in action. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Member for Mesopotamia, for the third question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Doing my job as Opposition Leader. That's what we're supposed to do, advocate on behalf of the people. You're answerable to them. You're answerable. Listen, sir, please. 42B. Will the Honorable Minister of Human Development tell this Honorable House what is the process for Belizeans in need during this period of extremely high cost of living to access grocery bags from her ministry?
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Human Development. Could we just ask for the mic to, thank you. Yeah.
Good morning to one and all, honorable members, Madam Speaker. Just allow me to greet the beautiful people of Belize Rural Central and wish a Merry Christmas. Let me start by saying, Madam Speaker, that's a very curious question. There's no different process than what this government has been doing to benefit the Belizean people for the past 4 years. We have GDP growth of 6.6%. And please, let me say to you, Madam Speaker, the member from Mesop will not tell me how to answer the question. He will not tell me how to answer the question. That he will not dictate to me. He has a record of making an honorable and royal mess of everything. Poverty index, Madam Speaker, down from 26% to 22%. Unemployment down from 3% to 2.1%.
What does poverty index and GDP growth have to do with the process? These questions come from people that come into my office, come from visiting around the country. This is what the people want to know.
I have heard you. I suspect you're going to try and get up a couple more times. I really have asked you not to. The minister is now answering the question.
Madam Speaker, let me refer to my notes. I am happy to respond to the question of the member from Mesopotamia. Let me begin by stating that we on this side of the House are well aware that global inflation is a real concern that affects the cost of living. But it is for this reason that we have been intentional about implementing strong economic and social protection programs. I am proud to report, Madam Speaker, that we are seeing incremental progress in reducing multidimensional poverty while at the same time increasing job opportunities for our people. More people have jobs and are gainfully employed. Let me briefly outline some of the ways in which we are addressing cost of living issues for the Belizean people. And the question, or non-question, whatever it was, did have to do with the cost of living for our people. Madam Speaker, I would like to remind everyone, including the member from Mesopotamia, that we are the ones who increased the minimum wage to $5 an hour. This led to an increase in earnings for almost 40,000 Belizeans across the country. People now have more money in their pockets because of the decisive actions of this government. Madam Speaker, our government has not shied away from the real everyday cost of living issues that have affected our people as a result of the COVID pandemic and the rising cost of living. We have provided subsidies to the transport industry so our people can enjoy freedom of movement. We have subsidized bakers and farmers to maintain food security so people can enjoy healthy meals. And over the past 4 years, Madam Speaker, we also added to the list of zero-rated items so that people can see real savings when they go to the grocery store. In fact, we continue to give back to our people by providing 2 GST-free weekends, which has already been mentioned in this House, so that Belizeans can have a good Christmas with their families. We are the government that believes in giving back to our people. We are spreading the joy of Christmas by giving back to our people with the $1 Million Lottery Initiative. We've heard about that already this morning, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, my point here is that our grocery bag program is only one part of a larger strategy to meet the day-to-day needs of our people. The grocery bag program makes sense when we understand that it falls within the broader context of all the other achievements our country can celebrate over the past 4 years of Plan Belize. Since 2021, we have invested $25 million, let me repeat, $25 million in the grocery bag program. We have provided, right? We have provided over 300,000 grocery bags to Belizeans across the country, concentrating, Madam Speaker, on our elderly, our persons with disabilities, our single mothers, and our other vulnerable people. We have concentrated on that, Madam Speaker. And I want to say that today, almost 8,000 grocery bags go to needy families monthly. And also, Madam Speaker, the grocery bag is a solid grocery. Madam Speaker, this is a far cry from the subsidized food pantry that the UDP had introduced then, in which people had to pay $12 and get a little bag worth $24. And you might get one onion in there. You might get one ponga stale beans. You might get, I don't know, maybe only half a ponga rice. Paying $12 and getting $24 worth of material. What can any Belizean do with $24 in terms of the rising cost of living, Madam Speaker? That is how we answer the member from Mesop this morning. We don't fool around. We put our money where the Belizean people need it and where our mouth is. We are aware of the cost of living, and as such, we have demonstrated
Madam Speaker,
here today
the member still has
that
not
we
told the Honorable House what is the process to access the grocery bags, Madam Speaker.
the grocery bags are distributed, Madam Speaker. The grocery bags are distributed by this government, and there is absolutely no new process. Madam Speaker, let me share the good news once again. We have cut poverty in half from 2018 to 2024. You don't like to hear it, Madam Speaker. That's why you have to jump up like Jack in the box every minute. He doesn't want to hear it. Now, multidimensional poverty is down to 22%, and every year we are seeing a downward trend. You see, Madam Speaker, our grocery bag program has been complemented by school feeding programs and other forms of social assistance for households and vulnerable populations. We have more children in school. 21 schools now enjoy free education. With the national rollout of the National Health Insurance Program, Belizeans all across the country will be able to enjoy increased access to quality healthcare services. And finally, Madam Speaker, the PUP government, this PUP government is serious about looking out for Belizeans. We remain committed to keeping our promise to our people, and we will continue to focus on the dual pillars of economic prosperity while rolling out targeted social protection programs across the country, of which the grocery bag program is a part. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Statement by ministers.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you again. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And this is not an easy statement to make because, Madam Speaker, today we're a nation still dealing with the shock of that very tragic accident that took place on the George Price Highway on mile 68 this past weekend. And I believe that I speak for all of us, and indeed our entire nation, when I extend our sincerest condolences to the families of the victims of the tragic road traffic accident. Every loss is difficult, but to learn of so many young people dying, it deepens that hurt. And I can't even start to comprehend the pain that these families are going through, especially on a time when it's supposed to be a joyous time, a time of celebration, a time of thanking our God for sending His only begotten Son to save us, and Christmas. And it just breaks our heart. So as we pray for these families who have started to say their goodbyes, and we pray for the souls of our dearly departed, we also pray for the full recovery of the Burns family, who suffered severe and in some cases some critical injuries. And I know that we're putting all the attention on the people on the accident, but we also have to think about the firefighters, the first responders, who are going through a deep trauma of what they witnessed. They were trying to save some of these lives, and they are going through a very, very hard time. And many times we may just look at the victims, the people that were in the accidents, and we don't forget the people that were along. And I think that we'll have to find a way how we can provide some kind of counseling for these first responders who are brave enough to be out there trying to battling this fire and trying to see if they could save any life during this time. I can't imagine the horrors that they saw or that they witnessed. So we also, whilst we grieve for these families, we pray for the Burns families, we also have to find whatever help we can to give our first responders with some kind of counseling. So I'll ask the Minister of Health, to see what arrangements we can, and he could speak also with the Minister responsible, Minister Habit, to put some kind of program so we can help these first responders. Madam Speaker, too many Belizeans are dying as a result of road traffic accidents. And I want to pause for one moment also to thank the media and most people on social media that they did not try to make this a political matter. Decide for what it was. It was a tragic accident that could have been avoided, yes, but nevertheless a tragic accident that caused the loss of life, especially for a lot of young people. So I want to thank them that we could have come together as a people, as a community, trying to provide some kind of comfort. But yes, one thing I would want to ask, and maybe something that we need to look at as a government and as a people, that I know sometimes people just want to share information on social media, and I think it was kind of distasteful for people to hurry putting up the pictures of the people that died, not how they looked, but how they, when they were alive, and say, oh, this person dead, without no consideration of the trauma that the family is going through. And maybe we need to find some kind of, I hate to put it this way, some kind of legislation to prevent this kind of things from happening. In many instances, you don't even know what happened, and then somebody on social media already blast what happened, and in some instances, it's not even the right information. But I think that generally, our country came together during this difficult period. But too many Belizeans are dying as a result of road traffic accidents. And too frequently, these tragedies could have been avoided if we had less reckless drivers, less driving too fast on our roads. If we could stop driving when we're under the influence of whatever drug, be it alcohol or any other substance that could impair our judgment. The recklessness is the one that is probably the worst. Madam Speaker, just on Monday, this accident just happened over the weekend. Right here by Cotton Tree, there's a gas station, a service station, and an old pickup truck was there waiting to cross the street. A white pickup was in front of us. It's a straight, so we were just overtaking the white pickup in front of us, and that truck decided that he has to get on the other side immediately. And he just, or him or her, just drove recklessly right across in front of this white pickup that's speeding and turned to get onto the other side. And at the same time, we were on the other side to overtake. So fortunately, we were not driving exceedingly fast so that my driver could have hit on the brakes and go on the side. How much time this person saved? What, 15 seconds? But yet he sees this person sees this pickup coming and just drive right in front. We're too reckless. We don't follow the laws. But I'd like to point out, and I know that the issue of drinking under the influence, what the police refer to the DUI, the police has been clamping down as best as they possibly can, and also the traffic department. I'm told that so far for this year, up to November, we have arrested 201 persons for driving under the influence. It is also a fact that much more needs to be done. That's nowhere close to what we have to do. But the prevalence and frequency of losing so many Belizean lives, especially our young people, promising young Belizeans, warrants immediate attention and action. In this regard, Cabinet has directed the Attorney General to commence a comprehensive review of road safety laws and regulations, particularly offenses dealing with driving under the influence, with a view to make it a serious deterrent for anyone who considers drinking and taking the wheel. In the United States, if you are driving under the influence and you create a traffic accident and somebody dies, they charge you for murder. We may need to consider that. That people understand if you drive or get in an accident, we can throw the whole book at you. I have had some people, I know on the road, especially on Friday night, fortunately, I have people also with me, and whenever I see a vehicle in front of me and driving from side to side, I immediately call the police. I say, stop them, and if they're drinking, call the police to go and lock them up. One of them was one of my own constituents, and the father called me the following day on the Saturday. He said, "Boy, John, thanks you call the policeman, they lock up my son, because you don't learn to tell us you can't drive when you drink. You can't do that." And some people call me and say, "Boy, I need my driver's license because they suspended for 1 year. Because that's how I make my living." And I tell them, plain, then you should have made the drive. You know what's going to happen. But that is not enough. And we really need to see how we could tighten it so that when people that know better, that if you drive under an influence and get in an accident, that we are going to come at you. In the terms of enforcement, we've also tasked the Ministry of Transportation to establish more around-the-clock, 24-hour highway surveillance, but to put more efforts in at night, because most of the time it's at night when people drive after they come from a party or they are drinking, to see how we could control or stop as best as we possibly can these driving under the influence. We have to amend the laws for the use of speed guns, breath analyzers, and dash cams. Will also be made to equip our officers with the requisite tools to apprehend and bring reckless road offenders to justice. Additionally, statistics in 2024 have shown that many of the accidents involve motorcycles. We see that every day, how reckless these people on these cycles are. Out of the 108 fatalities this year, 50 lives were lost in motorcycle accidents. This is alarming, and this situation needs to be addressed forthwith. More stringent requirements for getting a license and better training to operate a motorcycle will be put in place, including that when you buy a cycle, you must buy a helmet that has been graded to protect you. A lot of times you see so an elite helmet when them people have, the minute they drop on the ground, it flies off and they mess up and hurt them hands. One of the members been put in the cabinet chat, two persons, it seems it's a mother and a father, two of them have helmet in the same cycle, and they have a little baby, a small baby, maybe 2 years old. Almost they hang on the side, the mother they hold it by his leg, this shut out, no protection, no nothing. We have to see greater enforcement of the traffic violations of motorcycles for road safety offenses, especially of speeding, illegal overtaking. When you notice that they overtake you by right, just boom and then they pass you. And also for not wearing these safety helmets. These measures and more will no doubt aid in the reduction of traffic accidents and fatalities. But let us be real. At the end of the day, it is me, you, and all of us, collectively. We all need to do our part to make our roads safer in Belize. We are the drivers and the road users. We can say no to drinking and driving. We can say no to texting while driving, and no to speeding and illegal overtaking. The power to change our bad road practices literally rest in our hands. So let us all do our part to make our roads and our country a safer place to live and to raise our families. Let us not let these young lives being lost for them just to be numbers, statistics, but let it be a constant reminder that we can and must do better for ourselves and for others, for other users of our roads. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Introduction of bills.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, I rise to introduce the bill for an act to establish the International Marine Merchant Registry of Belize as a statutory body and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. As explanation, let me, Madam Speaker, to make the point that the introduction of this bill, the Merchant Marine Registry of Belize Bill 2021, is a pivotal piece of legislation designed to strengthen Belize's position in the global maritime and fisheries sector while enhancing our governance and operational efficiency. This bill seeks to integrate the International Merchant Marine Registry of Belize, IMABRE, and the Belize High Seas Fisheries Unit, the BHSFU, under the oversight and management of the Financial Services Commission. The objectives of this bill are threefold. One, strengthen governance within Belize's maritime sector. Two, enhance operational efficiency and regulatory oversight. Three, foster sustainable growth in Belize's maritime services industry. Belize has long been recognized as an international merchant ship flag state, with the ship registry having been established since 1989, with a view to position Belize as a hub for maritime activities. Despite advancements, challenges have emerged, including international scrutiny over transparency and regulatory standards. Since the government has reassumed control of IMABRE in 2013, while some efforts have been made to address these concerns, particularly in aligning with international standards such as those of the IMO and the EU, IMABRE and BHSFU still face significant operational and financial constraints, including limited investment and resources, inefficient budget allocation processes, rigid government bureaucracy affecting responsiveness and competitiveness. Belize's maritime sector has lagged behind competitors due to outdated technologies and insufficient marketing strategies. This bill aims to reverse that trend. The Financial Services Commission, the FSC, has demonstrated success in managing Belize's domestic and international business registries with innovations such as automation and efficient service delivery. Integrating IMABRE and BHSFU as a statutory authority but subject to the oversight of the Commission will enable streamlining governance and resource allocation, enhance compliance with international standards, adoption of modern technologies such as blockchain and electronic certification systems to improve efficiency and transparency, a proactive approach to addressing blacklists and sanctions. Madam Speaker, the benefits of this bill are many, but I would like to highlight a few key ones. First, the bill establishes a cohesive regulatory framework for IMABRE and BHSFU, promoting unified policy implementation and enhanced service delivery. Second, it will enable better coordination in monitoring and enforcing activities, reinforcing Belize's reputation as a responsible maritime nation. Third, it positions Belize to capitalize on growth opportunities in the maritime sector, such as targeting niche markets and developing new revenue streams. And finally, it aligns Belize with best practices observed in jurisdictions like the British Virgin Islands and the Bahamas, which have seen success in transitioning their shipping registry to statutory board frameworks. Madam Speaker, the proposed bill represents more than an administrative adjustment. It is a strategic move to unlock Belize's full potential in the maritime sector. By integrating IMABRE and BHSFU under the FSC, the Financial Services Commission, this legislation will ensure better governance, improve service delivery, and sustainable economic growth. I call on all members of this Honorable House to support this critical step forward for Belize's maritime services industry. I respectfully submit that the International Maritime Registry of Belize Bill 2024 for the consideration and approval of this Honorable House, and it does have the recommendation of the Cabinet. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, that bill is referred to the Finance and Economic Development Committee for examination, consideration, and report.
Bill for an act to establish the International Merchant Marine Registry of Belize as a statutory body and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
Members, in your notes, you would have noted in your email notes
Good afternoon, I'm Asana Cayetano and you're watching News 5 at noon. Let's get you up to speed with the latest stories making headlines today. The Briceño administration is spreading some holiday cheer by introducing a new statutory instrument that allows for GST-free shopping this Christmas. What's the controversy about a boardwalk being built in San Ignacio? Pasi Haylock wraps up the Just a Dollar fundraiser as the community begins to say their final goodbyes to the accident victims. And Farbers Road residents are furious about Citco's surprise overnight ticketing blitz. Introducing Anthony Leslie, a bright and ambitious 15-year-old with dreams of becoming a politician. These stories are coming up in just 1 minute.
This Christmas, get into the joy with Uno Fuels. Imagine winning a shiny motorcycle, a brand new 50-inch TV, or grocery coupons to make your holiday shopping easier. The surprises keep coming. All you have to do is visit Uno, and for every $25 on fuel, you'll get a coupon. Fill out and participate. Get a coupon for each quart of Uno lubricants or 2 for a gallon. Visit your nearest Uno gas station today, fill your tank, and drive into Christmas cheer with Uno. Uno, a brand committed with the future.
And welcome back. Today, a new statutory instrument is being introduced to amend the General Sales Tax Act. Under Schedule 3, temporary zero rate of GST, all standard rated goods sold by registered suppliers on December 14th, 15th, 21st, and 22nd, 2024 will be GST free, with a few exceptions. These exceptions include goods sold on consignment or wholesale, goods bought on credit or hire purchase, motor vehicles, gasoline, liquefied petroleum gas, diesel, guns, ammunition, cigarettes, and alcoholic beverages. Despite this, GST will still apply to taxable imports on these dates. Additionally, picnic shoulder ham, smoked ham leg, and imported turkey will be GST-free for the entire month of December 2024. Later today, San Ignacio will celebrate the inauguration of a brand new boardwalk and public space. You might remember that the groundbreaking took place just before March 6th municipal elections. Since then, Area Representative Orlando Habet and the Belize Tourism Board have worked together to complete the project. However, Mayor Earl Trapp has voiced some concerns, noting that Town Hall was left out of the planning and execution process for the boardwalk and the adjoining marketplace.
I think that it is very disingenuous coming from the mayor to say something like that because way back in February when the project was about to commence, we did inform him and he was against it. As a matter of fact, he went to the media and said that he was not informed, and eventually he went back and said that he had a meeting with Minister Mahler saying that Minister Mahler was supporting him, something to that effect. Well, after that, we decided that we wanted to speak to him, and he went out there with his architect and we looked at the area, we showed him the design, and he said, fine, it looks good, let's do it. I think part of the problem that the mayor has is that he wants to be involved in the collection of the monies for the rent of the 4 little kiosks that we have. But the rental of the kiosk will be put into a fund for the maintenance of the boardwalk, because the boardwalk is made out of lumber and lumber needs constant maintenance. Another thing is, I think that they were hoping, and many of his followers were hoping, that the floods would have taken the boardwalk. Well, it has now withstood maybe the second of the largest flood events that we have experienced in the last 25 or 30 years. And it is still there. It was covered many feet above the roof. It is still there, it has been washed, it has been prepared, ready for inauguration. Again, very disingenuous, because yesterday morning at about 8:39, the mayor called me and told me that he wanted to speak to me about the management of the boardwalk. I said, listen, I'm going into a meeting, but as soon as I get out of it in the afternoon, I will call you, or tomorrow, which is today, to explain to you what we are doing.
Today, San Ignacio bids a heartbreaking farewell to Jasmine Rodriguez and her 4-year-old daughter, Giselle. They are among the 10 victims who tragically lost their lives in last weekend's devastating collision on the George Price Highway. As family and friends gather to mourn their loss, a cloud hangs over the community. The fundraising effort led by San Ignacio resident Passy Haylock has come to an abrupt end after a reported verbal altercation with a victim's family member over the distribution of the collected funds. Residents of Farbers Road are outraged after waking up to find parking tickets on their vehicles this morning. One resident, who wished to remain anonymous, shared that the traffic department had ticketed the vehicles overnight, catching everyone by surprise.
We have an issue for Farbers Road. What happened is the city council paint the street red, but they no call during the day, call get them on their ticket, and they call after 9-10 at night, they call your ticket. So like the only 4 vehicles up on the main, you understand, now we don't really make no sense why people want to bad back carry it now at night. Because that 24 hours thing we understand, however, make it be 6 to 6.
15-year-old Anthony Leslie from Belize High School has made a name for himself by becoming one of the youngest students to win an award at last month's Model OAS conference. This event simulates the International Organization of American States Conference, where young representatives discuss regional issues. Anthony, who dreams of becoming a politician, shared his excitement and determination to be a trailblazer in his field. He told us more about this incredible experience.
The award that I received was the Best Head Delegate General Statement Award. However, it's not solely based on the general statement. It's based on your overall performance throughout the conference as a whole. Hence, it's based on your accomplishments. That's what the OAS experts look at. For instance, I was my working group leader, and they saw how I was able to interact with my peers in an effective manner and express my point in just a passionate manner. And moreover, I interacted with them and even debated with them on similar topics. My topic being migration, and my subtopic being specifically bolstering legal frameworks to assist unaccompanied migrant children. The conference was held in Washington, D.C., of all places, at the real OAS headquarters. So what I loved about that is that you were sitting in the spots that real diplomats were sitting at. So you could really get into the zone there. You could feel as if you're actually making a difference. And that's the purpose of the Model OAS. It's bringing youth together, just like me, to solve real world issues. And that's what I hope to see from future youth in Belize and the Americas as a whole, for a better democracy in our world.
That wraps up our midday news brief. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for the news in full at 6 p.m. and don't forget to follow us on social media for the latest news. Have a great afternoon.
For 32 years, I've been delivering impactful news across print, radio, and television. With extensive training both locally and internationally, I bring you the top stories on News 5 every night, covering special assignments including Taiwan's historic swearing-in of President Tsai Ing-wen in 2016 and the ICJ's role in territorial disputes from The Hague in 2018 has broadened my global perspective. I use all these experiences to bring you the very best on News 5 live at 6. I am News 5.
Are giving. And Madam Speaker, I need to quickly add before I forget that these clinics, both private and public clinics, can apply to be able to provide these services. For instance, in Belize City, Matron Roberts is a great example where we have a public clinic competing successfully against the private clinics and providing excellent service to its people. 6, access to affordable support services, especially for cancer screening, mammograms, breast ultrasounds, cervical cancer screening, and prostate. 7, successfully negotiations of price controls in the private sector, prices of clinical services, pharmacy, labs, and imaging. Since you have bulk purchasing, you could negotiate to reduce that price as best as we possibly can. 8, Madam Speaker, another success of the NHI is that it's a key element to bring the limited human resources that we have, which is mostly focused on the private sector, to strengthen the health care system and not allowing them to charge as they please. NHI ensures quality at an affordable cost. As a main pillar of Plan Belize and the medium-term sustainable development plan, a universal primary health system is being rolled out for the entire country to complement the robust investment in secondary and tertiary health care. For us on this side, Madam Speaker, the health of our people really matters. Madam Speaker, this bill has the approval of Cabinet. I will now commence the further discussions with the inputs from other stakeholders and the public. I urge the support of everyone in this House. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable members, that bill is referred to the Public Service, Labour, Industry and Trade Committee for examination, consideration and report.
Bill for an act to establish the administrative framework and other necessary mechanisms to enable the provision of equitable, accessible, affordable, and quality health care services to all eligible persons for the attainment of universal health coverage, to facilitate people-centered health care that meets the needs of the population, to promote efficiency in health care administrative operations, to enable sustainability through appropriate allocation of resources in health care in collaboration with the Ministry of Health, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Minister of Rural Transformation, Community Development, Labour and Local Government.
Madam Speaker, I rise to introduce a bill for an act to amend the Trade Licensing Act, Act number 19 of 2024, to change the date of commencement of the Act to allow for further public sensitization of the scope and nature of the Act, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Madam Speaker, this bill has the recommendation of the Cabinet.
Honourable members, that bill is referred to the Public Service, Labour, Industry and Trade Committee for examination, consideration and report.
Bill for an act to amend the Trade Licensing Act, Act number 19 of 2024, to change the date of commencement of the Act to allow for further public sensitization of the scope and nature of the Act, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Rural Transformation, Community Development, Labour and Local Government.
Madam Speaker, In accordance with Standing Order number 49-1, I move that the bill be taken through all the stages forthwith.
Honorable members, the question is that the next stages of the bill be taken forthwith. All those in favor, kindly say aye. Those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it. I recognize the Honorable Minister of Public Service, Constitutional and Political Reform and Religious Affairs.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker, and best wishes to you and your family. Of course, best wishes to all Belizean citizens, especially those in Fort George. Madam Speaker, this is the Law Revision and Law Reform Bill 2024. This comes from the Attorney General's Ministry. Madam Speaker, I rise to introduce a bill for an act to repeal and replace the Law Revision Act, Chapter 3 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to modernize the system of revising, consolidating, and editing the laws of Belize, to establish an official law reform commission, to allow for the laws of Belize to be reviewed and reformed on a systematic basis, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Madam Speaker, if you will allow me to refer to some notes provided by the Attorney General's Ministry. As background, consolidating and updating the body of laws that are passed by this National Assembly is a necessary and important function of government. This is necessary, Madam Speaker, as once a law is enacted, all and sundry are expected to know that the law exists. For Madam Speaker, as the old maxim goes, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So, Madam Speaker, when a new law is passed which makes a particular act a crime or imposes certain obligations on a person, every citizen is bound by the law and cannot, if he or she is found wanting, say that I was unaware of that law. It may become complicated and more difficult for citizens when the National Assembly, as has been the case in recent times, Madam Speaker, enacts a wide range of laws quite frequently. Just for the record, Madam Speaker, between 2008 to 2012, 97 pieces of legislation were enacted. During the period 2012 to 2015, 72 pieces of legislation were enacted. Between 2015 to 2020, some 161 pieces of legislation were enacted. Madam Speaker, during your tenure as Speaker, you have presided over an even greater number of laws have been passed. During this current legislative period, some 179 pieces of legislation and counting have been enacted by this government. So, Madam Speaker, a system has to be developed to enable citizens to have access to these laws in an updated and consolidated form. And so, going back to September 1979, the National Assembly of Belize had enacted a piece of legislation known as the Law Revision Act. The purpose of this law, Madam Speaker, was to provide for the revision, publication, and maintenance of an up-to-date body of laws that reflect the legal framework in force at any given time. That law allows for the appointment of a law revision commissioner responsible for reviewing existing statutes, correcting errors, and bringing the legislation in line with modern legal principles and practices. This revision then, Madam Speaker, is intended to 1. Compile and consolidate laws in a single, easily accessible form, 2. Remove obsolete or redundant provisions, and 3. Ensure that the laws reflect current legal practices and international standards. But, Madam Speaker, despite its obvious importance, the Law Revision Act has not evolved in tandem with the rapid changes in society, technology, and governance. Since its enactment, for instance, it has only been amended twice, by Act No. 49 of 2021 and Act No. 23 of 2023. This does not sufficiently address the ongoing need for dynamic law reform in response to emerging societal issues, new legal challenges, or shifts in policy direction. So this brings me to the reason for the introduction of this amendment today, Madam Speaker. Experience has shown that the consolidating and updating of our current body of laws needs a further mechanism. That is, in addition to consolidating the laws, our laws must meet with emerging societal issues and new legal challenges or shifts in policy direction. This is achieved through a law reform process. And, Madam Speaker, a law reform commission is an essential tool for facilitating this dynamic evolution of a country's legal framework. In the context of Belize, the creation of a law reform commission would provide several advantages. It would enable Belize to regularly review and reform laws in response to changes in society, the economy, technology, and international obligations. This proactive approach would ensure that Belize's legal system remains relevant, efficient, and responsive to the needs of the country's citizens. This commission, Madam Speaker, would ideally include a chairperson with expertise in the law, commissioners with diverse legal backgrounds, for example, constitutional law, criminal law, human rights law, commercial law, etc., and a research staff with specialized knowledge in various legal fields. With a dedicated commission, the process of law reform can be more comprehensive and streamlined, ensuring that necessary reforms are not overlooked. The Law Reform Commission would also ensure that legal changes are implemented in a consistent and organized manner, avoiding piecemeal revisions that may cause confusion or overlap. The AG's office informs me, Madam Speaker, that the revision exercise of the laws of Belize up to December 31, 2020 has been completed, and they will commence the new law revision in January of 2025. And when completed, this new body of laws will be referred to as the Laws of Belize Revised Edition 2025. In concluding, Madam Speaker, while the Law Revision Act has provided a foundation for the compilation and consolidation of Belize's laws, the need for a more robust and continuous approach to law reform is essential for the legal system to remain responsive to modern challenges. The establishment of a Law Reform Commission will address this need by providing a specialized, systematic, and consultative mechanism for law reform. This, Madam Speaker, is a significant step towards improving the legal framework in Belize, ensuring that it serves the needs of the public and supports the country's continued development. We recommend this bill for the support of this Honourable House. Madam Speaker, this bill has the recommendation of the Cabinet.
Honourable members, that bill is referred to the Constitution and Foreign Affairs Committee for examination, consideration, and report.
Bill for an act to repeal and replace the Law Revision Act, Chapter 3 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to modernize the system of revising, consolidating, and editing the laws of Belize, to establish an official Law Revision Commission, to allow for the laws of Belize to be reviewed and reformed on a systematic basis, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Motions relating to the business or sittings of the House.
I recognize the Honourable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I move that at its rising today, the House adjourn to a date to be fixed by the Speaker.
Honourable members, the question is that the House at its rising today adjourned to a date to be fixed by the Speaker. All those in favour kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Public business, government business, motion.
I recognize the Honourable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, this is a resolution authorizing a request for affiliation to the Inter-Parliamentary Union, motion 2024. Madam Speaker, with your move not to repeat the recitals of the motion, I move now therefore be it resolved that this Honourable House authorizes the Speaker of the National Assembly to, in a sovereign and formal manner, request affiliation with the Inter-Parliamentary Union and entrust the Speaker of the National Assembly to convey this resolution to the Secretary General of the Inter-Parliamentary Union. Madam Speaker, the introduction, when we first introduce this motion, I get a lengthy explanation of how important this union is for us to join. So that said, Madam Speaker, I urge your support. Thank you.
Honourable members, the question is now therefore be it resolved that this Honourable House authorizes the Speaker of the National Assembly to, in a sovereign and formal manner, request affiliation to the Inter-Parliamentary Union and entrust the Speaker of the National Assembly to convey this resolution to the Secretary General of the Inter-Parliamentary Union. All those in favour kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Announcement by the Speaker.
Honourable members, it has been agreed that the following bill pass this day: Trade Licensing Amendment Number 2 Bill 2024. As you are aware, under Standing Order Number 74, all proposed legislation, messages, petitions, motions, and other matters relating to the subject mentioned under the title of each standing committee shall be referred by the House to such committee for examination, consideration, and report to the House. For this to be done, other than by suspension of standing orders, is for me to suspend the sitting to enable the Finance and Economic Development Committee, to enable the Public Service, Labor, Industry, and Trade Committee to examine, consider, and report to the House on that bill. All those in favor kindly say aye.
Aye.
Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it. The sitting is therefore suspended, and until the Public Service, Labor, Industry, and Trade Committee has concluded their business.
Presentation of report from Select Committee.
I recognize the Honorable Chair of the Public Service, Labor, Industry and Trade Committee.
Afternoon, Madam Speaker. I raise to present and lay on the table sessional paper number HR 298/1/13, report from the Public Service, Labor, Industry and Trade Committee on the Trade Licenses, Amendment number 2, Bill 2024. Thank you.
Honorable members, that report is ordered to lie on the table.
Bills for second reading.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Rural Transformation.
Madam Speaker, I move the second reading of a bill for an act to amend the Trade License Act number 19 of 2024 to change the date of commencement of the act, to allow for further public sensitization of the scope and nature of the act, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
No debate, you move? Are you debating? Okay. I recognize the member for Curzon North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with regards to this bill in particular, we note with clear conviction that this is just an electioneering gimmick. While the bill itself has passed through the House, it's gone to the Senate. It was just a matter of the implementation. But, Madam Speaker, if I can gather from the information that we had received from our colleagues up north, clearly there was the kind of serious thought by stakeholders that this bill was being implemented without taking into full consideration the actual financial situation of particularly the people in the rural communities. Madam Speaker, I had forewarned this from the time that this bill was being debated, that while there is a need for us to improve on the governance of our local communities, our local villages, our local bodies, the mere fact of introducing a legislation to tax, this is a new tax, this is a new way of, this is a mode of going after the people of the villages. It was not the avenue to go. What has actually happened, Madam Speaker, and at the time that this bill was being discussed, is that when you look at the rubric, when you look at the wide scope of this net that was spread, you would go after the peddlers, you would go after those people making, selling on a daily basis to make a living. How would you now go back to your people and tell them, look, you have one Miss Jane trying to sell pudding, trying to sell snacks, trying to sell candies on a daily basis to survive, to take care of her family. How can you go to these people and tell them, look, you have to pay now because a legislation has been passed that is actually mandated that these village councils now collect funds from them. When I met with my village councils, I told them, look, probably we will be delinquent because I don't see how in the world we could go after these people knowing that they are making so small, they are making such a small money out of this, Madam Speaker, and yet we are going to tax them. It is not the best way to address things. Additionally, when you look at the way that this was implemented, particularly going to the shops, what you're actually doing is creating a trade license bill. It's creating a form of taxation to the businesses. We all know how business operates in this country. At the moment that you implement a particular tax, at the moment that you're starting to collect a particular license, any monies that you collect from any particular business, we all know that the businesses will not consume that additional cost. What do you think will happen? If they have to pay $100 for a particular trade license, you can make sure that that $100 being collected, the businesses will actually tax it on the consumers. So what is actually happening is that you are putting an additional weight on consumers on a food basket, Madam Speaker, that is already high, on a cost of living that is already at the skies, on inflation that can actually that we know and we can see that actually has no stop. It has no ceiling. It's going to continue. What I can see and I can tell you is that elections are coming right around the corner, and I think that it is not politically convenient for the party in government to actually start to move an ants nest, particularly in the villages where life is already hard. I don't see how this party could have actually implemented a bill that sees our village councils going after the businesses and taxing them. We eventually know what will happen. The businesses will trickle down to the consumers. This, before an election, is not the best thing to do. But to the people in our communities, all I want to tell you is this. Don't you take the line, don't you take the hook that you will not be taxed. The bill has passed. The Trade Licensing Act is actually in full effect. It's just a matter of implementation. You will not be taxed now. You will be taxed after the general elections. That's my contribution, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, it is listening to the member from Corozal North. It is unfortunate that after so much discussions, both at the consultation level with the stakeholders, certainly at the House committee meetings, at which they had representations, that the member from Corozal North would still seek to misinform the nation. I really think it is an injustice, and it is a travesty, really, to the Belizean people. But, Madam Speaker, listening to him when he said, and he used the example, that the trade license would seek to tax the small business people, the people who make puddings and other small, things to be able to earn a living, that they would be taxed. That is far from the truth. Totally baseless. The bill is very clear in terms of how, the Trade License Committee, because there is a board that is going to be guiding the process, and they will be responsible, and there's a clear schedule, for business owners to be able to qualify to pay for a trade license. They have to have 600 or more square feet of productive space. So obviously the person, the tacos vendor, the pudding vendor, the person who sells their oranges and bananas, those persons, are not going to, be, required to pay a trade license. I mean, come on. Let us not forget the real intention of this piece of legislation. And this was all part of, our plan, as part of Plan Belize, to empower the rural areas. Madam Speaker, we know that communities require services. So the village council has to ensure that they take care of, collecting garbage, disposing the garbage. They have to make sure they clean the playgrounds and the football fields, that they do maintenance to their, to the public spaces. So it requires money. Now, what this bill seeks to do is that for those businesses, we have huge business establishments in many of our rural communities. And if you notice, I'm focusing on the rural because that's where, the member spoke to. You have big businesses such as Ladyville, you have Bella Vista, Hopkins, Placencia, and I can go on and on. Big businesses across this country where you have huge business establishments, and they do not contribute a single dollar to the village councils. So what we are really seeking to do is really to create a system where, these business establishments by virtue of the productive space that they have, the business that they carry on, that they would be able to contribute, to the socio-economic development of the community. And let me be very clear. The trade license seeks to replicate the system that is used under the Liquor License Act, where the business owners would pay the money into the government coffers, and eventually it finds its way back into the village council's funds. So the money is not going to go into the consolidated revenue fund, but rather into a temporary fund where it is going to be, trickled down to the village community. So, Madam Speaker, I do not want to prolong the debate, but allow me to say that really and truly the basis for the amendment to the commencement of the Act is really to allow more time, as I said in my opening remarks, for sensitization, and education to the public, both at urban and the rural area, and to put in place all the, management structures and mechanisms that are required to ensure that when we implement, we have a smooth flow, and that, this process can run very smoothly and benefit directly our communities, both at the urban and rural level. Let me assure this nation and the members of this honorable House that there has been extensive work done on this bill, and I want to take the time out to thank, the many stakeholders who have participated and contributed to this process. The Belize Mayors Association, they have done extensive work. The Belize Chamber of Commerce, the Belize Business Bureau of Standards. We have, DAVCO and NAVCOs. Certainly, many other NGOs and organizations that had a vested interest. We had participation from, both the government and the opposition side. So this bill has been through a very extensive process. And I also want to take the opportunity, Madam Speaker, to congratulate and to thank our staff at the Ministry of Rural Transformation. They have, begun the consultation process across this country, from Corozal to Toledo, all the way to Benke. And I will say to you, Madam Speaker, contrary to what the member from Corozal North is trying to insinuate, the majority of the people who come to the sessions and participate are very optimistic. And in fact, I will say to you, many of them are disappointed that we did not actually implement the bill earlier, because they fully understand and appreciate how this is going to positively impact, their communities. So, Madam Speaker, I want to thank my ministry, our CEO, Mr. Valentino Schall, our Director of Local Government, Mr. King, our Director of Rural Transformation, Mr. Charles Galvez, and the entire staff at the ministry, the AG's ministry, and everyone else who has worked significantly and contributed to ensure that today we are where we are with the bill. And rest assured, the Belizean people, that we are here to work with you. It is part of Plan Belize to ensure that we can have, socio-economic development that is going to benefit all Belizeans. This is not about hurting our people, but rather it is about empowering our rural communities. It is about, making, especially, let me speak to that, the urban area, where we want to make the whole process of trade license certainly more transparent, more predictable, and we want to ensure that our communities and that the people benefit directly. So, Madam Speaker, I am happy that, we have gotten the support, and I ask every member in this honorable House to support this bill. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Trade Licensing Act, Act number 19 of 2024, to change the date of commencement of the act, to allow for further public sensitization of the scope and nature of the act, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto be read a second time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an act to amend the Trade Licensing Act, Act number 19 of 2024, to change the date of commencement of the act to allow for further public sensitization of the scope and nature of the act and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Public Service, Constitutional and Political Reform, and Religious Affairs.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is the Senior Courts Amendment Bill 2024. This is also coming from the Attorney General's Ministry. This bill was introduced for first reading by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, but he's not here today, so I've been asked to move the second reading of a bill for an act to amend the Senior Courts Act, Act number 27 of 2022, to provide for notices and documents required to be served in relation to appeals from inferior courts to be served by public advertisement and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Madam Speaker, again I ask permission to refer to my notes as provided by the Attorney General's Ministry. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs in introduction of this bill went through some of these items, so I'll just be brief and do a recap. Madam Speaker, as you and the House are aware, the Senior Courts of Belize have been undertaking comprehensive judicial reforms to reduce the backlog of cases and to improve the delivery of justice in Belize. I certainly want to express this government's appreciation to the Attorney General, Mr. Anthony Sylvester Jr., and to the former Attorney General, Mrs. Magali Marin Young, for the work that they have been doing in this regard. This bill, Madam Speaker, emanates from a recommendation of the Criminal Justice Board of the Senior Courts. That board, Madam Speaker, is a multi-sectoral body including representatives from the judiciary, the police, prosecution, and the prison, established to undertake a comprehensive review of country's criminal justice system with the goal to develop practical solutions to address issues affecting the criminal justice system. The board, in reviewing the existing inferior appellate regime, unearthed an issue which required some legislative intervention and consequently wrote the Attorney General's Ministry requesting for amendments to the Senior Courts Act to be done to address this issue. This issue, Madam Speaker, is the inability of the court under the current laws to serve notices to appellants to inferior appeals, in instances where the court office has no address, physical or otherwise, for the appellants to be served, nor any useful means of how to contact them. Ordinarily, provisions for what is called substituted service of related appeals documents on an appellant would address this problem. However, Madam Speaker, the existing provisions for substituted service would not address the issue due to lack of personal contact information on the files. Section 128 of the Senior Courts Act allows for notices and other documents related to appeals from inferior courts to be served electronically, by registered post, or by delivering or leaving the notice at the person's last known address. Even though the law provides for alternative methods of service, Madam Speaker, for Section 128 to be utilized effectively by the courts, it would still require the court's office to have possession of the relevant contact information for the persons to be served. In many instances, this is not the case. In view of the current circumstances, Madam Speaker, this Senior Courts Amendment Bill is necessary to allow for the enlargement of the provisions for substituted service in Section 128 of the Act by public advertisement. The bill introduces a new subsection 2 to Section 128 of the Senior Courts Act to allow for substituted service by way of a newspaper of general circulation, on a Senior Court's official website, or through a local media outlet. With this amendment, Madam Speaker, the Senior Courts will be able to effectively deal with the backlog of inferior appeals and ensure adherence with the Constitution of Belize, which, pursuant to Section 6.3, affords appellants the right to have notice of the date, time, and place of an appeal, and to a reasonable opportunity of appearing before the court. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You just moved the question?
Yes, Madam Speaker, I just moved that this bill be moved now.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Senior Courts Act number 27 of 2022 to provide for notices and documents required to be served in relation to appeals from inferior courts to be served by public advertisement and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto be read a second time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think that.
Bill for an act to amend the Senior Courts Act, Act number 27 of 2022, to provide for notices and documents required to be served in relation to appeals from inferior courts to be served by public advertisement, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Committee of the Whole House on Bills.
Honorable members, the House will now resolve into a committee of the whole House to consider the bills that were read a second time. At this juncture, I ask any visitors in the gallery to leave during this portion of the sitting.
Bills for third reading.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Rural Transformation.
Madam Speaker, I rise to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Trade License Amendment Number 2 Bill 2024 and passed it without amendment. I now move the third reading of that bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Trade Licensing Act, Act number 19 of 2024, to change the date of commencement of the act to allow for further public sensitization of the scope and nature of the act and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto be read a third time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an act to amend the Trade Licensing Act, Act number 19 of 2024, to change the date of commencement of the act to allow for further public sensitization of the scope and nature of the act and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Public Service.
Madam Speaker, I rise to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Senior Courts Amendment Bill 2024 and passed it without amendment. I now move the third reading of that bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Senior Courts Act, Act number 27 of 2022, to provide for notices and documents required to be served in relation to appeals from inferior courts to be served by public advertisement and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto be read a third time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an act to amend the Senior Courts Act, Act number 27 of 2022, to provide for notices and documents required to be served in relation to appeals from inferior courts to be served by public advertisement and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Deputy Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
Recognize the Leader of Opposition, Member for Mesopotamia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if you'd allow me before I move to my matter of national importance, to wish you Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all members of the House, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, all Belizeans, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, especially the people of Mesopotamia, and all of the constituencies which I have the privilege to lead. I also would like to wish those who celebrate Kwanzaa and Hanukkah happy holidays as well. Madam Speaker, my issue is the plight of educators in Belize, Madam Speaker. 4 years of failure in paying teachers allowance and increments, Madam Speaker. The PUP government of Belize has demonstrated a reprehensible failure to meet its obligations regarding the payment of teachers' commuting allowances, hardship allowances, and increments, Madam Speaker. This is very important to me. In the UDP, as far as candidates, members of the Central Executive, members of the National Party Council, Madam Speaker, the opposition, we have many teachers, Madam Speaker. My mother was a teacher, and this is the consensus that I want to bring to the attention of the PUP government of Belize, Madam Speaker. After the PUP 2020 election year Plan Belize manifesto promises of 20% salary increases, in the face of COVID-19, Madam Speaker, it is not as if these promises were made blindly, Madam Speaker. The PUP government knew what they would inherit as far as a decimated economy due to COVID-19, Madam Speaker. The PUP knowingly made promises they would not keep, Madam Speaker, of a 20% salary increase. We all know what happened. Teachers, along with other frontline workers and public officers, took a 10% salary cut when they needed their hard-earned wages most to deal with COVID-19, Madam Speaker. And after 13 years in opposition, Madam Speaker, 13 years, 13 long years, the People's United Party government spent 13 long years in opposition. Why? Why has it taken the Briceño PUP government 4 years to deliver on their promises and solve the problems of the teachers, Madam Speaker? I proffer it is disconnection, tone deaf. You would surmise that after 30 years as an elected member of this honorable House, the Prime Minister's capacity would be, at optimal. He would be the elder of the House and wise and getting things done, but it has been the exact converse, Madam Speaker. He proves over and over again that his capacity has expired. What we see in the Briceño administration, Madam Speaker, is the rot of the old guard who are entrenched in their old ways of managing the affairs of the people. The old ways, Madam Speaker, of dither, delay, deceive, and never deliver. Bureaucracy rather than betterment, Madam Speaker, has been the hallmark of this Briceño administration. You would think that with 30 years of experience as Member of Parliament and 13 consecutive years waiting to form government, that this Prime Minister and his administration would not take another 4 years to deliver on their promises to give the teachers what they are due, Madam Speaker. Why does it take that the BNTU has to overwhelmingly vote, Madam Speaker, to take industrial action for the government to do what is right and deliver what was promised to the teachers? Because this government simply does not care about the struggles of the Belizean people. They only care about themselves and their cronies, Madam Speaker. They prove it over and over again. The Right Honorable George Price had the mixed economy. The Honorable Prime Minister has the fixed economy. The economy that only works for Kenny Zeng with that wretched UB Hospital $6.9 million land acquisition as proof, Madam Speaker. The fixed economy for Haitham Diab, Jaime Briceño, Chris Coe, Larry Flowers, with I heard he got paid $7 million before a house was built. I'm sure the honorable member from Cayo South can disabuse me of that information. Tycrob and a chosen few make up this fixed economy, Madam Speaker. This administration simply does not care about the teachers, Madam Speaker. Teachers who are the backbone of our society's educational system. Teachers who, for the last 4 years of this Briceño administration, continue to be severely underappreciated and neglected despite their crucial role in shaping the future of this nation, Madam Speaker. These allowances are not luxuries, but necessities, Madam Speaker. Necessary compensations to help teachers cope with the harsh realities they face in their daily lives, Madam Speaker. The government's refusal to fulfill these financial commitments reflect terribly on its priorities and its compassion for the challenges educators endure. Teachers in Belize face numerous hardships on a daily basis, Madam Speaker, considering the highest cost of living ever, exacerbated by heartless store owners who the member from Lekai spoke of to the media a week or so ago, who engage in price gouging, undeterred by the government's hard talk and refusal to enforce consumer protection laws. Teachers often must travel long distances to reach their schools, sometimes in remote and underserved areas, just to fulfill their teaching obligations, Madam Speaker, with the exorbitant cost of fuel, with the lack of access to transportation, these teachers are left bearing the brunt of an increasingly expensive commute, Madam Speaker. Thus, the commuting allowance, which is meant to ease this financial burden, has been delayed and is often paid inconsistently, Madam Speaker. This is not just an inconvenience, it is a direct affront to teachers who are already struggling to make ends meet, Madam Speaker. This government's failure to honor this allowance is a clear sign of its lack of compassion and regard for teachers and their financial realities, Madam Speaker, which oftentimes more are in duress. In addition to the commuting allowance, Madam Speaker, teachers in Belize also face significant challenges due to the highest cost of teaching materials. Despite the government's promises to improve the educational system, many teachers are forced to purchase their own materials to ensure that their students, who they love so much, receive the quality education that they deserve, Madam Speaker. This includes everything from textbooks to paper and other essential supplies, Madam Speaker. The hardship allowance designed to help offset such costs has not been paid on time, Madam Speaker, leaving teachers to shoulder the financial burden themselves. This is not fair, Madam Speaker. This is not good governance. This is not a caring, compassionate government that was promised in 2020, Madam Speaker. This not only impacts the teachers' ability to teach effectively, but it also places an unnecessary strain on their already tight personal budgets, Madam Speaker. It is particularly unfair that in a time when the government continuously touts the strength and success of the nation's economy, teachers continue to suffer from a lack of financial support, Madam Speaker. Teachers continue to suffer under this Briceño administration, Madam Speaker. The Prime Minister regularly claims that the country's economic growth is unparalleled, is robust, is stronger than it has ever been in recent times, Madam Speaker, and that citizens are benefiting from these improvements. However, Madam Speaker, according to all of the teachers that I have the benefit of working with, Madam Speaker, and teachers that I don't even know, Madam Speaker, the reality is starkly different, Madam Speaker. Teachers, like most day-to-day Belizeans, are struggling, Madam Speaker. They are struggling with inflation. They are struggling with a stagnant income, all the while being told that the economy is thriving. This contradiction between the government's public narrative and the lived experience of teachers demonstrates why over 30 years the PM has turned into a tone-deaf, disconnected dinosaurs whose policies are to pay $200 million in one day to a billion-dollar corporation, while the needs of the people who are educating the nation's future are callously ignored and dismissed, Madam Speaker. Teachers are under tremendous pressure, Madam Speaker. This pressure is compounded by the government's failure to ensure that teachers receive their due allowances and increments in a timely manner, Madam Speaker. I have seen this Prime Minister come into this House, Madam Speaker, and pass supplementary for $100 million, pass payouts for $70 million, Madam Speaker, to special interests. but it has taken 4 years and a threat of industrial action, strike action, for a letter to be written of promises, which I will not hold my breath, Madam Speaker. Teachers are being asked to do more with less, Madam Speaker, and it is unconscionable that the government continues to dismiss their needs. Education is the greatest investment that we as a nation can make, Madam Speaker. The more educated our people are, the better our economy. Unless we believe in the colonial mandate of some of our colleagues who wish to have our people illiterate, impoverished, and dependent on the political directorate, so that they remain easy prey, Madam Speaker. Ensuring our educators are given the support that they deserve, that they need, is essential to the development of our nation, Madam Speaker. The failure of this PUP government to fulfill its promises regarding the teachers' commuting allowance, hardship allowance, and increments is beyond a deep injustice, Madam Speaker. It is not only a financial hardship for educators, but also a demoralizing message about how little their work is valued by this People's United government. As I am giving this speech in Parliament, they are laughing and making a mockery of the process of advocacy, Madam Speaker. If this government is serious about its claims of economic prosperity, it must show that it is willing to invest in the most valuable asset that we have, our teachers and our students, Madam Speaker. The teachers of Belize deserve better than to be left to bear the weight of an economy they are told is thriving while they continue to struggle, and the billionaires and the cronies continue to prosper, Madam Speaker. The government must take immediate action to correct this injustice and provide teachers with the financial support that they deserve, Madam Speaker. The Minister of State in the Ministry of Education for some time now has promised teachers an annual grant for materials and supplies, which is yet to come to fruition, Madam Speaker. Rather than freezing allowances at the ending of the school year, the opposition demands that the government continue to pay these allowances and allow teachers to use it to prepare their classrooms or purchase uniforms, Madam Speaker. With regard to gratuities and pensions, there has been a blame game going on for some time between management's Teaching Service Commission. But, Madam Speaker, I must remind this government they have an entire ministry that deals with digitization. We are in the digital era. Thus, appraisals and increment forms should be completed and stored digitally, member from Cayo North. We're not there under the UDP. This is the PUP now. It is your show, sir. You asked to serve. You are not doing us a favor. You asked for the job, Madam Speaker. With the same priority that the government can find $3 million to SMART for software services, SMART which the Prime Minister brother and family members own, along with a certain billionaire, it could have long paid a software developer to devise a system to deal with teacher allowances, salaries, and gratuities for teachers when they retire, Madam Speaker. The recent offer letter dated December 9th, 2024, by the Ministry of Education with regards to paying outstanding increments and allowances is nothing but a crisis management reaction, rather than a meaningful and proactive solution to ensure that teachers get what is due to them, Madam Speaker. While I concede that this problem is an age-old problem that transcends political partisanship, Madam Speaker, this PUP administration has had 13 years to prepare the solutions and deliver on their promises to do better. Stop blaming Dean Barrow. Stop blaming the UDP. It has been 4 years. The excuse and honeymoon period has expired, Madam Speaker. Over 4 years in office, and the PUP government has not made any concrete effort to solve this issue, Madam Speaker. The issue of increments and allowances not being paid stems from several things, Madam Speaker. An old and antiquated bureaucratic process, a lack of human resources to process these increment certificates and allowance forms, the timely submission of documents by managing authorities. Madam Speaker, it is shameful that the People's United Government can spend $2.9 million on a well rig, $3.2 million for designing a phantom hospital, $6.9 million for a land that they did not need, Madam Speaker, and another $3.1 million to Smart SpeedNet for Microsoft Office, but they are yet to find the monies to retain the services of a software developer to develop a program for the submission of appraisal forms, increment certificates, retirement documents, etc., Madam Speaker. So that active as well as...
I'm going to interrupt because I've heard the figures of 3.1, I've heard smart, I've heard software a couple of times. So they... and you are reading, but yes. I'm going to ask you, your point of national importance was when the government is going to pay these various allowances?
It is the overall challenges that the educators are facing as far as the increments, allowances, and the problems and systematic solutions that we have that I'm going to get to, Madam Speaker.
You're not going to get to it. I think we've heard all of it, and it's very lengthy. I want to ensure that we're not getting into repetition. I've heard the server situation, the software. I've heard it a couple of times. Okay. So let's get to what the ask is. I've been told that the Deputy Prime Minister will address your point of national importance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I said, Madam Speaker, we hope that the suggestions and the things that we are pointing out will be addressed so that active as well as retired teachers can get what is due to them in a timely manner, Madam Speaker. You know, my mother, as I said, was a teacher. She fled Belize to escape poverty. Thus, this is an issue near to my heart, and it hurts to see our educators in this country being robbed of their dignity by this laughing set of buffoons, Madam Speaker. I implore...
No, member. In this parliament, you're not allowed to do that, man. You know that.
I did not direct my comment to anyone, Madam Speaker. I did not say the government. I did not say anyone. I did not say...
Member, let's wrap it up, shall we?
I implore the government to bring long-standing, lasting rectification to the challenges of our teachers by doing the following things, Madam Speaker. Retain the services of an individual or firm to develop a software with shared access between managing authorities, Teaching Service Commission, and Treasury to filing the documents, Madam Speaker. Allocate finances to various managements to hire the additional staffing needed to process increment certificates, retirement, and allowances, Madam Speaker. Hire additional staffing at the Teaching Service Commission, which is also a key body where teacher employment and welfare is concerned, Madam Speaker. The Ministry of Education has informed various managements that financial grants will be dispersed to their accounts by the government by December 20th, and in turn they are to process all outstanding increments and allowances for teachers, Madam Speaker. School closes today, and a lot of the managers and their teams go off on holiday as well, Madam Speaker. Without the extra staffing, without tax calculations, with record keeping and filing not being up to par, it will be a miracle if managements across the nation will be able to process the increments and allowances for thousands of teachers over the course of 6 days to meet the December 20th promised solution, Madam Speaker. The opposition believes that without putting in place the aforementioned infrastructure, the government's December 20th promise is nothing more than a duplicitous, desperate attempt to dissuade the union and its membership from strike action scheduled for January 2025, Madam Speaker. I close by saying, Madam Speaker, the government has no excuse. The Prime Minister has been in Parliament for 30 years, served in the Musa administration as Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Lands. The Minister of Education has been in this Honorable House for 26 years, Madam Speaker, and has been Minister of Education under the Musa administration, as well as leader of the opposition. They have had decades amongst them to identify and rectify the problems before us in regards to our teachers, Madam Speaker. I pray that they demonstrate to this nation that they are not just extinct dinosaurs whose time is long gone, urgently needing to be replaced by young leaders with the vigor and political will to overhaul a broken colonial system that continues to oppress and suppress. I pray my honorable colleagues disabuse me of my notions and lead as elderly statesmen who can leave a legacy behind that they solve the problems of our teachers that previous administrations did not, and put in place systematic improvements that will see the betterment of our educators and the enhancement of our education system. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Deputy Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, did the Leader of the Opposition get permission from you to read that lengthy speech? Diatribe. I know he's praying for teachers to a miracle. We're in December, and the miracles happen a lot in December. But the miracle he's praying for is not going to happen. I know he's praying that come January, teachers will demonstrate and you'll have industrial action and all of that. That's not going to happen. I know you are praying for that so you can go grandstand and walk with them like you did with the cane farmers one time.
And I even know the cane farmer.
Not even know it. Just hang around and try to get a little benefit from all the action. That's not going to happen. Regrettably, the Minister of Education is out the country on the business of the government and the people of Belize, so he can't be here to respond. He can't respond adequately to you. But we've had and it's Christmas, and we don't want to get into all that nastiness. We've had a great relationship with the teachers. We have had that, and we will continue to do so. I know the member for Kyle South wants some trouble. It's Christmas, man. Christmas officially start because we have GST free weekend. Right? That's right around the corner. Everybody gearing up for that, including teachers and all Belizeans who are looking forward to this wonderful opportunity. We've had a great relationship with the teachers, right? Great. We just finished recently first of its kind education clinic, where over the course of an entire month, I believe, teachers along with the government, but particularly the Ministry of Education, conducted nationwide clinics in every single district to provide an opportunity for teachers to get access to solve their land problems, get access to and apply for land, get access to the tax service so that the tax department can explain, and in particular the tax department could have brought a little gift to them to inform them that pretty soon, I think it's January 1st, instead of demonstrating January 1st, teachers and lots of workers all over this country will benefit from the increase in the tax exemption figure. So if you're making $29,000 or less, you won't pay any taxes. That means if you're making $2,416 a month, you won't pay any taxes. That's happening on the People's United Party government. They're not going to demonstrate against that. They are going to celebrate that, because you're talking about at least $1,000 in the hands of thousands of Belizean workers, including teachers. And more importantly, we solved the problem the United Democratic Party was unwilling to solve. Because you come here like Columbus, like you have all the answers, and you discovered America. But you didn't. Because we were right here, long before he came. Because this government recently solved that 16 or 18-year-old crisis that was facing teachers in particular. We could not sign a collective bargaining agreement with teachers and public officers for 16 long years. How many years under the UDP? The vast majority. All 13 under the UDP, because the then government refused to agree to pay the 30% pension that are due teachers who were working in denominational schools and who were struggling to get their pension because the churches could not pay. So you had teachers for decades being unable to collect their full pension upon retirement, because these schools, these denominational schools, teachers get 70% of their salaries from the government. The churches pay them 30%. And when it's time for retirement, they should get the 70% from government and the 30% from the churches. That wasn't happening. So you've had hundreds, if not thousands, of teachers who upon retirement were unable to get their full pension benefits. And that held up the collective bargaining agreement for almost 18 years. And this government was able to solve that problem. This government has taken on that responsibility to spend, I don't know how many million, probably $10 million a year, additionally, to ensure that all teachers, no matter where they work, whenever they retire, they will get 100% of their pension benefits. We are not trying to hurt teachers. Far from it. Each of us recognize that if you see any successful person in this country, they would have had a master teacher, 2 or 3 or 4 during the course of their lifetime. We wouldn't be where we are without great teachers in this country, and we've been blessed to have them. And we are trying to keep them as fast as, and because the truth is we have been losing them. And we are trying our very best to keep them and make sure that they get what is theirs. And so, coming to the problem of the allowances and the increments and all that stuff, Minister told the nation that this is a problem that we inherited, but we're not going to cry about it. We're going to solve the problem. And we've been working hard at it. But the minister has given a full commitment that we are going to work even harder on it to make sure that come December 20th, teachers who have not gotten their increments, who have not gotten their allowances, and in the case of increments, I don't know how long, you have teachers, what, going back 6, 8, 7 years who have not gotten that. We are going to make sure that on December 20th, all those persons get their monies that are due to them. And that's a very, very firm commitment. So I'm sorry to disappoint you, sir. It's December, and it's a time for celebrations. It's a time to take care of the families. It's a time to wish each other well. It's a time to share love and great tidings and greetings and all the good things that come with Christmas. It's not about demonstration. That's not going to happen. This government, the minister has made it very clear that no BNTU is going to march against no government under his stewardship. We believe that. We've worked very closely with him and with the BNTU, and we're going to make sure that December 20th they get what they're supposed to get. I'm sorry to disappoint you. It's not going to happen, so you're going to have to find help somewhere else. But not. I don't know where you're going to go, but you're going to have to find some help somewhere else, but not at our expense.
You can't get help even by your left-hand side.
No, you can't get help from over there, because you see what he did. The former Minister of Education. The member for Colette is supposed to be the Shadow Minister of Education. So this is a matter that he would have taken up, but the Leader of the Opposition get first bite at it, and he decided to, oh dear, that's where you're going with this. I rest my case. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member for Albert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is the season, Madam Speaker. This is the season of love and joy and peace and a little patience. But Madam Speaker, before I get into the matter of national concern, I wanted to share with this honorable House a vision that my father, Leroy Tega, often articulated to me growing up. And I quote him, Madam Speaker. He said that Belize is a new Jerusalem. It is where Almighty God will express his Ummah, meaning the brotherhood and sisterhood of humanity. Madam Speaker, for a long time, I could not see his vision. It seems that we're quick to anger. We're quick to tear down our own, to beat up, to speak ill of each other. Madam Speaker, I certainly was no part of that. Seriously. Madam Speaker, but in the wake of these accidents, road traffic accidents that we've seen that have affected communities in Cayo and Kikaka, even San Pedro, Madam Speaker, I saw a glimpse of his vision. People like Passy Haylock, Madam Speaker, who initiated just $1 to help the victims of the road traffic accident in Benke. And people like Selene Villanueva, the chairperson of Kikaka, who has used our social media platforms to keep us, our entire country, engaged in how we can be our brother and our sister's keeper, on how we can be an example of this vision of being the Ummah of God, the brotherhood and the sisterhood of man. I say this, Madam Speaker, because in the case of both accidents on the Western Highway and on the Northern Highway, I knew some of the families personally. And I know the pain that comes from losing a loved one, Madam Speaker, but most importantly, the pain, which I cannot imagine, of losing a child. Or young people, Madam Speaker, who are the future of this country. And I heard you, Prime Minister, member from Orange Walk Central, about the importance of us being an example. You know, many times as I make my way to Belmopan for these meetings, I see government vehicles flying by on the highway, not mindful of the rest of us who use the highways. They've been reckless. I have seen vehicles with no lights on the highways at night. Madam Speaker, we have laws, and we have good laws. But the issue is the enforcement of these laws. The ability of the Ministry of Transport, and I'm sorry, my colleague is not here from Stand Creek West, to ensure that the teams that we put on the highways are adequately equipped to deal with enforcement when there is a violation of the laws and regulations we have on the books. Madam Speaker, I'll go a little further. In many jurisdictions, including Belize City, you can't get a license plate, you can't get a license sticker. In some cases, they're not the IDs available to print licenses. You're operating on a receipt, Madam Speaker. And I'm not saying that this is a recent occurrence. For the last 2 years, my daughter has had a receipt because she cannot get a license plate. I share that, Madam Speaker, not to remove our personal responsibility, but when you give a team a job to do, you must equip them. And they should be able to recognize quickly when there is a violation. I have seen vehicles in front of me with no license plates allowed to pass by a checkpoint, and that cannot be acceptable. So when we talk about fixing a problem, let us start at home. Let us start with putting in a better system in place to monitor the reckless driving of blue plates on the highways. It's a fact. Let us take on personal responsibility to report when we see a license plate on a vehicle and the vehicle has no lights, trucks, buses without lights on the highways. Let us also not drink and drive, not text and drive, and be sure that not only that we are mindful of our lives or the lives of the persons that are in the other vehicle that's approaching or behind or in front, but the lives of the pedestrians on the highways, because many times when this meeting goes on late at night, Madam Speaker, and I'm heading home, there are people on the highways with no reflectors walking on the highways and we don't see them. So when we revisit these laws for motorcycles and helmets, let us also consider stricter penalties for seat belts, stricter penalties for those who drink and drive, stricter penalties for people who walk on the highways with no way of us seeing at night that there is a human body along the highway. Prime Minister, I am sure that your government, as you said in your statement to ministers, a statement this morning, will seek to address this matter. It is urgent, and we need to deal with what is happening at the Transport Ministry and the Transport Departments, where it relates to the necessary tools for drivers and the necessary tools for people who are expected to enforce the law. The breathalyzers cannot be on a shelf. They have to be placed where those checkpoints are placed, especially, Prime Minister, at this time of year. So I take this opportunity to thank the many Belizeans across this country who holds the families of those who lost loved ones in their hearts. Those who gave $1, and those who are able to give $1,000. Your love and your generosity to humanity does not go unnoticed. We must be our brother's keeper, and we must be our sister's keeper. I take this opportunity, Madam Speaker, to wish all of us a happy, Merry Christmas, and a very safe holiday season with you and your families. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I pretty much agree with about 90% of what the honourable member from Albert said, which is what I just said earlier this morning in my address on the Chadwick Road traffic accident or incident. So there's nothing to argue over here. We agree with you. And as I also pointed out, honourable member from Albert, is that in many instances, laws in itself could only go so far, but it also requires us to do a mindset and to be able to be more responsible of our actions on the road. On the issue of the traffic license and the tickets, it's something that has been plaguing the ministry for some time. And yes, it is embarrassing because it's something that should have supposed to be easy to address, but for some reason it could not be they couldn't get it done. But I had a meeting with the minister and the acting CEO, Shal, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they pointed out now that has been addressed. They got a large order, but because there was such a backlog, that quickly ran out. So another large order is already supposed to be in place to be able to catch up with all that was needed. So guilty on that one. That should have been addressed a long time, but I think we have addressed it by now. So again, Madam Speaker, I commend the honourable member from Albert to be able to get up and to speak on this matter, a matter that's beyond politics, something that's affecting all of us, and that all of us are still reeling from that shock. At the same time, like her, I want to take the opportunity to wish you, Madam Speaker, good health, and to you and everyone in this House, to all the people who are in York Central and all Belizeans across this country, a blessed Christmas. I know we get caught up with the commercial aspect of Christmas, but also there's a spiritual part. And this is a time for us to be able to reflect where our God, our Creator, sent His only Son to save us. And that is the ultimate sign of love and care and sacrifice that can be done. And we need to follow from that example. Earlier on, DPM was whispering to me. He said that one of the most tragic events could happen is when a father or a mother buries their own, because we expect them to bury us. And so we can't fathom the pain that they're going through. But I hope that they can know, they would know and can realize and could feel the love from all of us for them, especially this Christmas time. So I wish you all a blessed Christmas, a happy one, but be safe. And that 2025 will bring new things and exciting things. And I wish Belizeans all the best in 2025. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Members, perhaps I was a bit too patient, given the season with that first matter on adjournment. I can commit to you that won't happen again. Members, it would be remiss of me if I didn't also extend to all of you my best wishes for a safe holiday season, to you, your families, and of course to the staff and their families over this holiday season. I also take the opportunity to thank all of you and so many Belizeans who have sent me such encouraging words of support, and really to the many cancer survivors who have actually given me some really good tips to manage this journey. And so I feel encouraged by that, and I look forward to getting through this bump, if you will, and to continue working. With that, I wish all a very safe holiday season, and I now put the question on adjournment. Honorable members, The question is that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor, kindly say aye. Those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.